what's up, everybody? Welcome to Tone Talk with Marc Uzansky and Dave Friedman. We've got a great panel of people lined up with us tonight for a dedicated show dedicated to Edward Van Halen. We've got, obviously, Dave Friedman. What's up, Dave?
Hello.
We've got the fantabulous Pete Thorn.
Hi, guys. Nice to be here.
We've got Michael Nielsen from Big Hairy Guitars.
Hey, y'all.
And David Black from Seduce.
Detroit.
In the Detroit area. Well, representing the Detroit area. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. I want to make sure that everybody knows that all super chats tonight will be donated to the Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation and St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So if you guys donate anything to the show, we will be splitting that to these two these two charities. Okay. All right. So I also want to know if anybody knows where that music came from that I just played in the opening video. If anybody knows that, I'm just curious. Just curious if anybody can get that. If you, the first person in the chat who gets that, I will give you something for free. You just have to contact me on Facebook. I'll send you something. I haven't thought about what it is yet.
There's random stuff from your house.
Yeah, I might send him a pot or a pan or something.
Yeah, old moldy cheese or something.
Exactly. But if someone knows where that came from, where that music was from, and I didn't play it,
call a friend.
Can I call a friend for help?
You didn't hear any music? There was an opening video. If you didn't hear it, then you're gonna have to check it out when we're done. Dan Pfeiffer.
First one.
Dan Pfeiffer with the first super chat. You rock, Dan. Love the show and great cause. Thanks, guys. And then we got another one. Rest in peace, EVH from JCA. Thank you, guys. I'll try to get to most of these as I can. And I think Gear Boy, you got it, dude. I just sound like the kid from Fuller House. You got it, dude. Contact me, Gear Boy. Send me an email at tonetalkmarc, M-A-R-C, tonetalkmarc at gmail.com, and I'll send you something, Gear Boy.
Wait, first of all, though, that reference, you actually watched that show? Or watched that show? Fuller House?
Dude. Come on, I got kids.
Yeah, but really?
I've got kids. Don't make fun of me. I got kids.
Be nice to Marc.
I'm being nice.
So what we'd like to do is, that's all right. I deserve to get ribbed. I also posted on the Groom Noodlers site, I posted that I watched Ellen because Bon Jovi was on Ellen.
Oh, no.
And I totally got ripped on that too. Everybody was like, "You watch Ellen?" I'm like, Bon Jovi was on. It was on TV. What do you want from my life?
Were they giving you crap for watching Bon Jovi or watching Ellen?
I think it was both, really.
Did Phil X play on Ellen?
What's that?
Yeah.
Phil X on Ellen?
Yeah. And he did.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that would have been great, dude. Yeah.
He did. Yeah, someone wrote, "Hilarious, Dave." Yeah. MSYF. Okay. It was funny. So I'm just kidding. So we got a lot to go into tonight. I've got pictures, a lot of things. I'm going to be sharing my screen a lot. And we're going to be asking Dave Friedman a lot of questions. I know David Black saw Van Halen on the second tour, I believe. So we're going to get into that and a whole bunch of other things. But I just wanted to quickly share my screen and just show this picture. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's not doing it.
It was working for a sec there.
Yeah, it was there for a minute, and then you clicked on something.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So just wanted to say how much of a huge influence this man has been on my musical life. Such a huge fan of Ed. I don't know why I call him Ed like his friends, but I Eddie Van Halen as I knew him when growing up. Just such an amazing musician. The music that he wrote, not just some shredder, just an amazing player, but also the songs were just so meaningful to me, so happy, so It just reminds me of summertime, having fun with my friends. So anyway, I just wanted to dedicate this show, and I know all you guys love Edward Van Halen as much as I do and his music. So, you know, maybe we can go around the room. I just shared a little bit, but you know, I'm curious. I first heard Van Halen when I grew up. I was born in '68, so around 1980 is when I was 12 when I first heard Van Halen 1. I was in camp. I was with my friends, one of my friends who I actually hung out with today for a little bit. And just remember listening to Eruption with our mouths open, just wondering, like, what is that? I know people have said that, you know, but is it two people playing? Is that a synthesizer? What the fuck is that? And I wasn't even playing guitar back then. Just to me, as a person appreciating music, it was so over the top. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I don't know if you guys want to go. Maybe Dave Friedman. I'm curious when you first heard.
You know, that's a little foggy. I don't quite remember that moment. I mean, it probably was a little bit after. It was probably around 1980-ish or something. Probably that we started in on that with my friend Marty. So there wasn't that day when it came out that I heard it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was something like I was getting into music and getting into stuff. And I think the first concert I saw was The Who in 1981. And, you know, I don't know how old I was. I'd have to count the years. Born in 68. So there you go. 12, 13, something like that. And then the funny thing is I got into Van Halen, but then my friend and I really got into like really heavy stuff, like super death metal kind of stuff for a short period of time. And then we kind of got out of that. And then it was full on, you know, Van Halen, 80s hair metal rock, you know, full on all those bands, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw them for the first time in 1984 on the 1984 tour, opening with Unchained. Can't ever forget that. Crushingly loud at Joe Louis Arena.
That's gone now.
I was going to say, where is that?
Detroit,
right.
not anymore. It's gone.
Yeah, they tore it down. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Ripped it down.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to see him the first round, and then I was so disappointed when when Dave left and Sammy joined. I was really physically sick over that. Like I was just like, oh man, like what? This sucks. My favorite band, you know. Totally remember it. So I never really saw them with Sammy either because I kind of boycotted that. I was just like, that's not my thing. Years later, I've appreciated the band and the music. But anyway, David Black, what about you, man? When did you first hear him?
Geez, I'm the oldest out of all you guys, probably. I would bet I'm going to be 59 in 2 days.
Oh.
How old are you guys? Am I older than all you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I remember, dude, because it's like I was there when it happened. You know what I mean? Like in the midst of your day-to-day world, you know, it was like you had Aerosmith and like the context of it all. It was different, you know, like the bands you heard on the radio and stuff. Yeah, Aerosmith, Foghat, Ted Nugent, Led Zeppelin. You know, all the original stuff, kind of the foundational stuff. And then one day sitting in my car, Craig Power Play cassette player, Jensen coaxials in the back, the opening chords to You Really Got Me on the radio. The single had just come out. The record wasn't even out yet, but you just heard that sound. And it's like, what is that? I've been listening to Black Sabbath and Purple and Zeppelin, and that's what you came up with. But there wasn't anything that sounded like that. It was distinctly different. There was something about it. And it sounded great in the car. It just jumped out at you. And then later on, I was at a field party, standing around a van, and the door was open, and someone had the whole tape. And that's where I heard Eruption. And it's just like, wow, standing outside, fire, bunch of dudes hanging out. And it's like, yeah, but it was like you saw it as it came up in the context of everything else. It wasn't just like, oh, this band or Led Zeppelin and everything happened before my time. That was like the generation before. So Van Halen happened as my generation happened. You know, it was a great time. It was a great time for music. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally.
I love that story, man. I mean, just the van in the field and you're partying, the doors open. It's like,
I remember. I almost remember that kind of vibe. You know, like even when I was a kid at that point. You know, like I remember that kind of.
Me and Dave were talking about it the other day. There were 2 rock magazines, Cream and Circus. There wasn't any MTV. A VHS was a very exotic device at that point in time. And all you heard, they didn't play good music on the radio. You didn't hear Black Sabbath on the radio. It was John Cougar Mellencamp and Journey, Boston, Kansas, Foreigner, Styx. That was like the radio staple at that point in time. And Van Halen kind of changed that because they were so accessible. All the stuff that Marc said in your introduction sounded like everything that Van Halen wanted to do. They touched you in just the way that it was designed to do.
Yep. Yeah. And that was the perfect age. Yeah. That's crazy. And so, Michael, what about you?
I was like 11-ish when I started like really discovering music and playing guitar. So that was, I'm a 74 baby. So that was like 5150 had come out. So I came in, Sammy already was there. I knew the Van Halen songs from the radio, but like Steve Vai existed, John Sykes existed. There was all these amazing virtuosos. And so when I got into Van Halen, it wasn't that it like shook up my world in terms of like, how is anyone doing this? It was just, it was so good. And the songs were so good. They just went straight to the top. And I could listen to them in front of my family and stuff too. Like I couldn't put on Ozzy and with that, but I could throw on Van Halen all day long. And then I ended up going back through the catalog, and discovering backwards, like, oh my God, fair warning. This is like the greatest album ever. And then you keep going back. Van Halen 2, this is the greatest album ever. Van Halen 1, this is the greatest album ever.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So that's wild that you discovered them later, with the 5150 stuff.
Yeah. Actually, kind of the same time because OU812 kind of just was coming out and I was discovering the old stuff. So I really have no Sam Dave bias. I like them both. They hit me at the same time. So I just got 2 bands.
Right. And Pete, what about you? When did you first hear them?
Well, I was thinking about it, and I think my first memory, and it might have been earlier than this that I'd heard them, but my first real memory of making an imprint on me was the crazy Pretty Woman video. So it must have been when in Canada where I grew up, we had Much Music instead of MTV. That was the music channel.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it was called Much Music, and a different channel, and so we didn't really have MTV up there. And I can remember the video for that with just the crazy, Mike dressed like a samurai and, the guy in drag and all that stuff. And it was just like, what is this? This is insane. That's like my first memory of it. But I might have heard them before that, but that was when I probably so around 82. So, cause that makes sense. Cause I'm just a few years older than Michael. So it's like getting into them around 82, and that was Diver Down era. And then going backwards and going, whoa. So by the time 84 came out, I was pumped. I was like ready. I know that like by the time that concert was going to happen, and by the time like the video for Jump and Panama and all that came out, I was a full-blown fan by then. So I'd obviously gone back and listened. I waited outside the Southgate shopping center all night long. I don't know why my mom let me do that at that age, but I sat out from like 10:30 till went before pre-Ticketmaster, right?
Yeah. Wait outside the record store, man.
Yeah,
Record store. Yep, that's it.
Camped out for tickets. And I got third row floor for the 1984 tour. Remember that? And I was way on one end, but I was really close. And I was in front of the old, Dave and I talk about PAs a lot, in front of the old box style PA, like it was literally like 15 feet in front of me or whatever, 20 feet in front of me, because I was in third row. And when they came out and they started with Unchained, it was so loud that I couldn't even hear what song it was, and it was awesome. It was like, I remember being able to feel the wind of the sound. Like,
right, you don't get that anymore.
Blowing my hair.
We discussed this.
Yeah, but I was so into it. And then, when Dave left, I don't remember being like devastated or anything like that. I remember really enjoying it, going, well, let's see what they do next. And then Sammy joined, and I just watched the Live Without a Net show the other day.
which is a great show. Yeah.
Which is a great show. I mean, it's like no matter how, whether you prefer, it's like my impression watching it the other night was, and I remember feeling like this as a kid, it was like, man, how much fun can you possibly have playing rock music? They're having it in this concert. It's just crazy. It's like, how do they even have that much energy to get up there and run around like that and go crazy? And Ed's just brilliant on that show. So even though musically, the six pack, the early stuff is what I gravitate towards. I still really enjoyed the whole era, and I enjoyed it. I've been listening to more to OU812, and I went and listened the other night to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and I hadn't listened to this stuff in a long time, to be honest. I was listening to Balance and watching some stuff from it because it's like, well, it's really sad and he's not here anymore, but there's all this great music that I can go back and spend some time with that I haven't spent a lot of time with, because I sort of just always gravitate towards the Dave stuff.
Yeah,
there's just a lot I haven't listened to closely, and
which is great. I mean, that's the amazing part. He did have a long list of music, they did. So there's still a lot of stuff to go through. I mean,
yeah,
for me, like I haven't even given 3 a chance. Like I've
exactly. And like a lot of people, I think, are like that. Right. They haven't given 3 a chance. And it's really, 3 is an interesting album to listen to if you just listen to it from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to listen for the musical ideas on this. Not necessarily like I want to just put this on as background music, and you'll be like, oh, I don't like this record. If you really listen to it, it's like, and approach it almost like, what if this were like just his demos or something? And you listen to it, it's like there's some great stuff on there. Some great. Right. A lot of the songs are like bordering on 5.5 minutes and could be edited a bit or something, but it's really great. It's like, and there's so much I have to go back and listen to too. Where it's like, man, I got to listen to these records I haven't listened to in a long time. The first 6 I listen to all the time.
Right.
But
like this day. But
we had that discussion. I think it was you and I that had that discussion, or maybe I don't remember now. Yeah, I think I brought it up on your show. The influence of the singer and the producers on Van Halen is pretty immense.
Yeah.
The David Lee Roth era Van Halen was definitely guided by Dave on what, Eddie's riffs, of course, and collaborative effect, thing, but it was guided by Dave and Ted Templeman.
Master of ceremonies. Yeah,
master of ceremonies. But then when Sammy comes in, there's a lot of influence of Sammy on that music. Tons. The whole style is almost different. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a lot similar to his own solo work with a much better guitar player.
You think maybe like in listening to Jump and stuff, though, and then getting into, OU812 and those records, like I think Ed was going in kind of that. He was happy playing keyboards and doing.
Well, he wrote Right Now back in the Dave days.
Did he?
Yeah. He said he had that music, but Dave didn't want to do it.
Again, a guided by Dave kind of thing.
Well, there you go. Okay.
So that's the thing, and then 3, like we mentioned, is Ed's album.
Yeah.
Without production and without I mean, there might have been a producer on that. I don't remember.
But without like oversight or guidance or
without kind of oversight and guidance or reins.
That was also in an era that was pretty tough to come, because everything had changed and things were still changing quickly. So to even put out any album from a band that had existed for 10 years or 15 years, there was a total identity crisis for most bands that showed up.
That's a very interesting point.
True.
97, 98.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It was a really transitional, like we were coming out of grunge. It was like grunge into new metal.
Yeah. Everything was just weird.
It's true.
Yeah.
I just want to get to some of the super chats. Variac 90, which I wonder where you got that from. Another Ed fan. That's awesome. Thanks for doing this, Mark and Dave. Thanks for everything, Ed. We'll keep the flame burning. Rest in peace. Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I'm going to go slow so I don't pass everybody.
While you're doing that, Pete, about Live Without a Net, I was showing a Guitar for the Practicing Musician magazine that was that era. And they asked him, like, what did you think of that show? And he said they had been filming 2 or 3 shows, and I think something went wrong, and finally they were just like, "Fuck it, this is the one. Whatever happens on this one, we're just gonna put that out." And the interviewer asked, "Well, what did you think?" He's like, "Yeah, it wasn't that good." I think it was amazing. Like,
Yeah, it was really good.
He was his own worst critic, like anyone. I mean, I remember seeing them in 2012, and then hitting him up after the show and going, "You were amazing tonight. It was awesome." And him saying, "I just couldn't get anything going tonight. I just couldn't make it happen." That kind of. Yeah, I was like,
I think that's the way everyone is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's like David, you come off stage and you say the same thing. I wasn't that good.
I never have a good.
That was great. What are you kidding?
I never have a good night, but when I do, I know it. You know?
Dave, do you ever have a good night? Like you're like, "Man, I was on fire tonight." And then you get off stage and people are like,
Yeah,
it was okay. And you're like, "No, tonight was it."
Yeah, totally. My tone sounded great. I couldn't hear you. Yeah.
I wish your guitar was louder in the mix. And you're like, "Shit."
It's funny, I did, just because of this, I thought back, and it's like, to me, I came up the same way. Backyard parties, hall parties, beer parties, and then you kind of move from that into like the way Eddie came up, from the same generation. That's how people came up back then. You know what I mean? And that's kind of changed a little bit. People, that was paying your dues back in the day, or around here, that's what it was. It doesn't. You could go out as a kid once you got going, and you could play 3 or 4 nights a week. You could live in a house with a bunch of your bros, start a band, and you could float the house off what you made playing, and that's all you did. Do people still do that? Is that a thing still, or no?
You make
like,
a great point.
Well, I mean, not now like COVID time, but I mean like in recent times, it just seems like it's kind of different now how people develop, but they're not as close as they used to be. You know what I mean?
When I first moved to LA, I got it. Whoa, that better? Strange. I'm just going to turn the sound down. When I first moved to LA, I worked for a little while in a store out San Gabriel Valley, and a lot of guys would come in that store and say, "I saw Van Halen in 1974. I saw Van Halen in 1976 at like a friend's backyard party, or at the at the bar in blah blah blah." A lot of people would be like, "Man, they played at my friend's birthday party. They played here. They played there." It was amazing. It's like everybody in the San Gabriel Valley. These were dudes that were like a little bit older, maybe 50 or something like that. And I'm like early 20s, and these guys had been there. They'd seen them play. They just played it all the time.
Oh yeah, now you can go back and hear the stuff they used to cover, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo and Space Truckin' and all these crazy covers they used to do, and it's like, I used to do the same thing. It's great,
Yeah, they did the Rover by Zeppelin, I've heard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Plus when they play like Kool and the Gang and stuff like that too, and do like rock versions,
Right.
But then when they finally come out and you have David Lee Roth as front man, that explains where the entertainment aspect of their band came from. It wasn't 4 dudes just looking at their shoes. It's like they had all that experience from playing all those different kind of songs to kind of show it off, Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. I mean, they used to play Gazzari's and all those places, and there'd be 2 bands a night. Dave's got a story to tell about that too. But my friend Frank Symes used to play in a band called the Whiz Kids, and they would play opposite Van Halen on 2 different stages in Gazzari's. Sure. Whiz Kids was more like a glam band, and the girls really liked them because they played a lot of the tunes that that you could dance to and stuff like that. So Van Halen, I remember Frank saying they were very competitive. Like they were buddies, but like they'd get on stage and Dave would just be like, Whiz Kids had finished, and then they'd start, and they'd be like, "Come on, let's get the crowd," and like just try and. So it was like that, that entertainment.
Right.
Value. Yeah.
We also had.
Go ahead. Sorry. David, when you were playing in that era, how many nights a week? At one point in time, how many nights a week were you playing?
Dude, I do
what's Seduce say?
3, 4 45s a night, 4 or 5 nights a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
You'd make all the mistakes. You can make all the mistakes. I've made them all.
You'd be so freaking tight after.
Well, yeah. When I used to go see these guys, man, At that point, they were so fucking tight.
Right.
It didn't mean it. It didn't matter if they
And
could
Ed was
play
the
with their
model.
eyes shut and
And
falling
everybody.
down, and they would still be tight. It's crazy.
Right. That's
Ed
all.
was the model.
And I'm sure that happened.
And the same with Van Halen. I mean, that's how they got amazing even before they got signed. You know, just playing all the time.
Like the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's the thing the Beatles and Van Halen have in common. They were both great cover bands, and they both just slayed live. You know,
Totally.
go out there, no monitors, like forget it. They go out there and play, just like sing
Right.
great.
Did anyone see that thing that was just posted from 1974, I think, at Gazzari's with Van Halen playing covers?
Maybe that's the thing.
I just saw it on YouTube
I don't think
That's
so.
cool. Yeah, I
Yeah,
gotta
I
check
thought
that
I-
out.
in passing on Facebook or whatever, and it was like,
It was a video?
no video, just audio, but
Audio.
but it was
I may have heard that.
really super cool.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say, David Crosby, go fuck yourself. Just want to throw that out there.
He did apologize, which I thought was nice. I thought he said, I didn't actually realize that he'd passed away, and I was just and I was like, okay, I guess that if it's not your taste, then it's one thing, But
Yeah, it's not his taste. Whatever.
he apologized. He said I should have kept my mouth shut, and I didn't even realize he was, And so it's like, it made a little more sense at that point. I was like, okay.
I guess, but like,
Although, how could you not know he
why
passed
even
away?
open your mouth?
No,
It's like everywhere.
Remember
no.
me talking a while ago about how much smaller the world was without all this stuff? It was
Yeah.
better.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true. Chris Quinn, thank you for the super chat. Did Eddie ever record with a José amp? Unchained sure sounds like a José. That grainy sound, but most people say he recorded with one plexi.
No. He used one amp recording all those 6 records. Period. And it's stock. Well, relatively stock.
What does relatively stock mean?
Well, meaning like it's a relatively stock specimen with maybe a few minor things that don't really, just slight little things that don't really do much.
Okay. Now I may have,
Relatively stock. I mean, it's a stock circuit, meaning there's not a gain circuit added.
100K feedback on the 4-ohm tap.
Yeah, maybe, or 47K. Depends on who we're talking about.
we got a super chat from Vincent Moretti. Love you guys. Thank you. Question for Pete and Dave. What do you know, if anything, about Ed re-recording live here right now? Sammy said Ed redid all of it. Is it true? And how did he get the sound live? Rest in peace, Ed. I don't know that.
No clue.
Yeah,
I can't even think of the song at the moment. I mean, I know kind of the song, but
Does that mean I think there's a live show, a concert?
It's a double album, right?
Yeah, double album, right?
After FUCK, and it had the Who cover on it, and
oh yeah.
I don't know. For me, it didn't even matter. I
don't know. For me, after
Keep
FUCK,
playing all the
everything was over with.
Well, I mean, I still listen to the stuff. So I'm trying to find the super chat from Michael Garrett Weber. I can't put it on the screen, bro. For some reason, it's not letting me, but I see your super chat for $50. Thank you very much. Those charities will appreciate it. I'm going to go through some pictures because I want to do pick your brain, Dave. So Dave Friedman sent me images of the rigs that you've built for Ed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm putting them up, why don't you talk about when you first met Ed? I think we talked about this a little bit last time.
That's a little foggy when I first met him. I do remember meeting him when they were recording the Fuck record with Andy Johns. And
Wow, look at that.
pictures.
I know. Look at this picture, right?
Look at that. And look what he's playing through.
Holy,
It's like
that's
a custom
Is it like a
padded
custom?
cab or something. I don't know what it is.
rad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
wild.
a cool
That's
picture.
great, man.
Yeah, drums right in the ground, on a tarp or something.
Yeah, it looks like one bass drum is bigger than the other too.
And no front heads.
Drummers used to do that. They used to put
Hear
two
the
kids.
generator in the background.
No front heads on anything. It's a 70s thing.
Yeah, no heads on the back. Yeah, funny.
It's interesting. Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna go to some of the rigs that you built. So is this the earliest one that you worked on?
So that would have been the. So anyway, what I was saying is, the first time I met him, I think was the recording of the Fuck record. I delivered something to his studio, and he helped me. Delivered a 412 cabinet to his studio, and he helped me with it out of the car.
Amazing.
I think it was in my own car too. I think by that time, Matt Bruck had started working with him, and Matt was an old friend of mine from Andy Brower Studio Rentals. So somehow I got to bring the cabinet up there. I think I was not working for Andy Brower Studio Rentals at the time, so I'm not sure how that happened. But that was specifically that was a slant JCM 800 Marshall cabinet with 75-watt speakers in it, which is what he wound up using on the record and later buying from the rental company. So he used this Soldano on that record. It was his Soldano into this 75-watt JCM 800 cabinet. You know, nothing. He liked the way that sounded better with a Soldano, which kind of makes sense. Soldano is a little furrier sounding of an amp, and those speakers are a little cleaner and more efficient. And it kind of like the marriage between them makes sense. So then this rig that's on the picture here was done. So the reunion tour, I just got these dates straight. I know Pete and I were talking about this the other day. So this reunion tour that he did with Sammy, it was that last Sammy tour that they did. It was in 2004, from what I have gathered from these picture actual dates. So at sometime in 2004, I assembled this rig for him for that tour. And there's a pedal board, which I think I sent you a picture of, Mark.
Is that the back of that?
That's the back of that rig.
Wow.
And
then
that was the pedal board for it. Now that big beige thing in the center was a you know, I'm looking at that picture now. That the way that picture is might be a little bit later because
what the hell's going on here? Sorry.
I think that EVH switcher, is that the Peavey? That's not the Peavey switcher, is it?
No, that's for the EVH amp. Looks like it though, right?
Yeah, isn't that other white switch just for the pedals? Not like
The white switch was for the pedals, yes. Well, this was relatively. This did go with that other rig, and I do believe that it might have been updated later with the newer amp. So this just might be a picture that's a little
Updated later.
Yeah,
but this says flanger. I know that.
That switcher was a switcher that George Sayre had made for Ed and was used on the Sharon tour, and that we just used it at that point in time. And then Lonnie Topman was the guitar tech during this era, and we know Lonnie. Pete knows Lonnie.
Yeah, Lonnie tech for me for a year.
Yeah,
he was cool.
Great tech.
So can we go back, because I know we wait. Which was the what was that rig? Jeez, that we just looked at. I'm sorry, I'm switching around, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this for a second. So what's in it, and what was, did he like tell you like what he wanted?
Oh, very specifically.
Okay, so like let's talk about that. Like I want to get into like what's the conversation like with him about like, okay, you know, this is what I want for the touring rig, and I'm just curious. We can go into that.
Well, here's the thing that you learn over time in dealing with artists and dealing with rigs is you keep your mouth shut, and you let them tell you what they want, and then essentially you go, I can do that, and you, unless asked, you don't put your 2 cents in, because that wasn't going to work in this camp. At least every camp's a little different with how that works. If they want your opinion, they will ask it, generally speaking.
Dave, you feel like there was a point after working with him or other people for a longer period of time where you change your opinion? You just go in with, hey, I'm comfortable now throwing out my opinion? Or is it kind of, this is your MO?
It depends on the situation. You have to learn how to read the situation. Still, with this camp, you let him kind of tell you what he was looking for, and if there was a definite problem with what he wanted to do, I might say something, like that really can't be done, or something like that, But you have to be, in a lot of camps, you have to be careful not to overstep your. You'll be out of there really quick if you overstep your boundaries. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the thing, it's like a psychological adventure every time you're dealing with an artist. It's totally different, and everyone is totally different. So over the years, you have to learn how to just kind of fit in with whoever they are. Yeah. So Pete understands working for artists, Pete. I'm sure you, as a player too, you kind of learned, it's different with Chris Cornell to Don Henley.
Yeah.
And what you say, how you react, and what,
It's no different than your gig, really. Yeah. It's just you're on the road now. Now you're in that bus. And then, Courtney loved Don Henley. I've had some personalities,
Yeah, exactly.
It's, generally speaking, just being intuitive, like you say, and knowing when to speak up and knowing when to offer an opinion when you're doing it. But it's really like that with anybody, isn't it? If you're doing a job, you get hired to do something. Somebody's hiring you to remodel the kitchen, and you come in and go, what you need is this over here and this over, people are going to go, it's my house. I think I might know what I want, or at least have, or maybe you can offer me some options, wait for them to ask, but ask them, what do you want? And then it helps you,
Exactly. And you understand that. So, but there's a lot of people that don't understand that.
I guess so. Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. It's true.
When you come in to someone with the caliber of Eddie Van Halen and you're going to offer your opinion,
right.
Right off the bat. No. He's got, 20 years of doing, touring the world and selling millions of records. It's not,
So what did he what did he say to you exactly for you?
Well, this is he already sort of knew. A lot of this is a little bit left over from previous rigs. So he for a long time he'd been using the Roland SDE 3000 delays.
So like 4 of them, right?
Well, that's 2 rigs essentially in there.
Oh, okay.
So there's a backup. So essentially this rig was this Line 6 piece, the Echo Pro, and that was only for, I don't remember what song it was. It was a song that they had done, I think on the last, an extra song they had done on, right before this tour, they did some sort of greatest hits package with Sammy.
Oh, like that Up for Breakfast song, maybe, or something.
Yeah, and they did 2 new songs on it.
Yeah.
Right. When this was happening, and there was some reverse delay part or something that he needed to just trigger that for. He liked that unit; it worked for him. It was set on one setting, and there was a remote switch that would
was a human
trigger a little relay box that I made to just switch that in and out.
Humans being, maybe?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that was just a little reverse delay thing. It was used on one song for one little tiny part and for a second. And then the PCM 70 is used for Cathedral. Occasionally, he also used to kick it in for like delays on top of delays, just to get all trippy and spacey. Then other than that, the two SD 3000s were, you know, the stereo delays, essentially one set. Well, the delay times varied wildly depending on his mood. You know, 250, 500, 300, 600, or thereabouts.
Dave, were those always on?
Those were on a lot. But they're kind of like echo, you know, just like ambient echo in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he wanted like more delay on top of that, he would hit the PCM 70, even though it was on the setting for Cathedral.
Ah.
He didn't. There's no MIDI or anything in this rig. And then that top thing is a rack mount smart gate.
That's an MXR. Yeah.
Yeah. So he used to that was inserted essentially in the loop of the 5150 to just shut it up. So the rig was basically the pedals in a switcher. You know, the you know, he had the wah and he had the I don't know. I can't remember. You know, yeah, octave. Yeah, you had it.
Did I have it before?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah. So, you know, you'd have the he had a chorus in there. Later he had an octave. But he had a chorus and a flange and a phaser, just like he's always had. And I think the octave was over here, actually. I think that was added later. And then the switcher essentially switched the pedals in and out. And these two switches, one was for the PCM 70s, and one was for the roll-ins, maybe, or one was the line 6, and one was the PCM, and then the delays were here, and then there's 3 pedals. Something like that.
And what was this thingy? Is that the octave?
I think that's the octave that was added later, but I actually, in this picture, I don't think it's actually hooked up.
Yeah, it just looks like it's sitting. Yeah, it's wrapped around.
Things evolved and changed.
Right. And then later on.
I grabbed these pictures off the internet. I didn't have these pictures.
Oh, didn't really?
Yeah.
So this is Wolfgang's setup.
Yeah. But let me explain further on the setup. So essentially that pedal board went to the front of the amps. This is a buffer here, Access Electronics buffer, that would drive a balanced line, actually, back to the amp rack, and then it would unbalance at the amp rack. So there was no noise in the line at all. It's really clean because they ran a 50-foot snake, maybe even longer, if I recall. And then it hit the amp. You know, he channel switched the amp, which is the box is doing, and then essentially a line out was that goes to a dry cabinet. A line out was taken that I built on the back of the rack, and that feeds the PCM. Well, it fed the loop box for the line 6 delay, then that fed the PCM 70 and fed out stereo to the 2 delays to the H&H power amp. And then they could link more H&H power amps for more cabinets.
Now, at the bottom of the rack that we were looking at, which let me go back to that.
2 H&H power amps.
These are the 2 H&H power amps.
Yeah, and now this rig, there's 2 rigs. So this was 2 complete rigs. But there was another rack separate that had more H&H power amps in it that powered some cabinets on, well, at this time, Michael Anthony's side, and later Wolfgang's.
So you've got 4 channels of power amp there, like you would.
Well, this is a backup rig, so there's
okay. Yeah.
He's only using 1 power amp with 1 rig, and then
Got it.
the other is a backup. So
Sure.
And in terms of the heads, he's just
all
using
backup. He's 1 head.
just 1 head, all backups.
Yep.
Did you
But
have
from
any-
night to night, depending on how the head sounds, he might switch to a different head.
Did you have any issues with those Peaveys at the time?
No, those Peaveys up. I'm not sure how, but they seem to like always work. Like they're built like
Yeah, they're tanks.
awfully. I mean, theoretically they should break, but they don't seem to break.
Now, did he just have stock 5150s? Like,
Yeah, those are stock. I mean, he chose the specific tubes that were in him. During this era, I think it was just Chinese 6L6s. Pretty sure.
I liked his cable then. You know?
Oh yeah, that cable. That was the thing. During that era, there was no wireless. It was a long ass cable, and they had the yellow heat shrink on the cable every foot or so, so he could see it on stage all the time because he didn't want to step on it and trip and fall or whatever. That's and I think during this time, didn't he also still have the little thing hanging off the guitar? I'm pretty sure.
That big bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't the huge bar, but it was the second one that was a little bit longer. It was like an eye bolt screwed into the side of the guitar. So keep it away from his feet, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And he liked God, I can't remember. There was a specific cable that we used too, I think. The first cable was George L, actually.
Really?
But then later it was something else, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Interesting. Actually, for the really long length, the George L worked really well.
Interesting.
But it was real fragile.
So this is a picture I got from
Japan.
Mm-hmm. So here's
the bottom right amp at the bottom I worked on before. Actually, I probably worked on a couple of those.
Which one is the amp?
The amp is not pictured here, I don't think.
It's there, right?
Not sure it's here.
He had the amp on that tour, though, because that's the one where I got lost for a minute coming back, I think.
Maybe, but if it is, it's...
Maybe it's the top one up there on the top left.
Could maybe be the top one. There's a back picture of this. We might be able to tell easier.
It's got the little tear in it. Maybe the tear got bigger after that. Are we ever nerds? God, we're nerds.
Absolutely. So here's that wood one again, a different time period.
Right.
That wood one again. Yeah, like I said, I worked on that one. It's good sounding amps. I think it's like a 69 or something.
And then what are these, like 72 JMPs?
Those are later 70s JMPs, so 70s, 77, 78, somewhere in there.
The big rocker switches.
Big rocker switches. I've seen a bunch of those too. I've never seen evidence of a mod other than a component here or there. I've seen like impedance selectors changed to heavy duty ones that Jose used to do. Stuff like that. Heavy duty stuff. But I've never seen evidence of a mod. And like I said, I've actually been in several of those.
Wow.
So
let me go back. By the way, let's talk about this picture.
Sure.
So this picture is yours, David Blacks.
That's mine, man.
So tell us about this night.
Want to hear the story of this picture?
yes.
It's great, man. I was probably 10th grade, 11th grade, 16, 17. Van Halen 2 had just come out, and my buddy was an usher at Masonic Temple in Detroit. So he got me down into the orchestra pit. That's like my little Kodak flat camera. There's no zoom or anything on that. It's just a little shitty film camera. But I was supposed to actually see him open for Sabbath the year before. And the day of the show, we found out my friend's mom had thrown our tickets out. Crushing.
Oh my God.
Seriously, crushing. So I had to wait a whole year to get to this night. And I hadn't been in a good band yet. All my bands up to this point were shitty, or like, play two shows, they fall apart. I didn't come from where a lot of musicians were and stuff. So I was finally getting to see the guy, and it was so big because everybody loved him so much. And he'd already made his mark at this time. And I talked with Dave, he was single, he was young. You know what I mean? They were out tearing it up. These guys would come to town and they'd go down to the radio station. It was like the Howard Stern show with a couple fifths of Jack, and an 8-ball. I mean, they took the place over for a couple hours. Midgets, strippers, the whole 9 yards. Every time they play, and you would just listen to this shit on the radio all day. They'd go sound check, and then you go down to the show at night. But you got to see it, and it was early on. If you look at the picture, there's no Floyd. He had 12 cabs. Half of them had the vinyl off of them. Half of them had the vinyl on them. Alex had his Silver Sparkle set, double bass, couple SVTs, real, you know, it was their first headlining spot, you know. I pulled up the show on my phone the other day, and their whole set was the first 2 records. That was it. That's the material they had. You know, there was nothing more. That was it, including the encore. It was the whole bulk of their work till that point in time. And it was great. It was a life changer to actually see that in real life at that point in time as it was happening. Like I said, in the context of everything else, this was fucking amazing. You know, I can't put into the words what it was like to stand there and see it. It was incredible.
And you were like you said, like 14 inches in front of his mic stand.
Yeah, because it's like I got down there like just before they were supposed to go on. There was a couple other like photographers down there. So I walked up and his mic stand was like right there. And they walked out and they started to light up the sky. And he was like right there. And it was like life changer, just a life changer, you know, because it was everything you'd aspired to be. And you saw the guy executing it in the way that you thought it should be done, you know? And it was different because Sabbath and Zeppelin, Purple, all those bands, they're all English bands bringing the blues back to us. Van Halen was an American band. They were one of the first ones that had that party thing, like you were saying. They'd release the records in the spring. That would be the record or the cassette that was in everybody's car in the summer, you know? It was a great time to be alive and a great time to be in music because it was before all the other stuff came along. You really had to want it. You really had to want to be there. You couldn't just press your phone or press a button. If you wanted a Van Halen record, you might drive to 3 or 4 record stores and not find one. And that was your day. You know? I don't know, it was a different time. It was a different time.
I'm such a geek. I hear a little bit of echo. Does anybody hear that?
That's awesome, Dave.
I'm trying to I'm such a geek. I'm trying to figure
I don't
out.
mean to reminisce so hard. It makes me feel old, but
No, dude, that's what we're here for.
Guitar player being it was such a strong impression. I've met guys older than me that saw Hendrix a couple of times, and they speak to me the same way. It made the same impression. I saw Hendrix at Isle of Wight. This guy told me, you know, and I'm like, that's fucking unbelievable, you know.
Yeah.
This was that to me, you know, because I was just young enough to want it so fucking bad. And I saw the guy doing everything that I wanted to do. And about a year after that, I got my first good band. And then I started putting everything I'd seen into practice, you know.
That's
great.
Awesome.
Wait, there's a little more to that story, though.
Oh, the other part. Oh, so okay. So my buds, the usher, they finished their set. And I had to think, it's like, I don't even know if I'd always tried to get backstage. Everybody did, and you never did. But he grabbed me, and we're backstage, and I'm standing there just flipping out because you're in the middle of it all. And this show is just finished, and everybody's fired up. And my buddy goes, he's going to be coming this way, right here. He's going to be coming this way. So we talk for a minute. Eddie comes around the corner, stage clothes on, hair still wet. And he starts to go by us to go up the stairs. And my buddy goes, dude, you're the greatest fucking guitar player I've ever heard. And he stops, and he turns, and he looks. And he smiles and he goes, dude, you should hear me play piano. And he cracks up and runs up the stairs. And like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. There's no way. And it blew me away.
That's awesome.
It blew me away. I'll remember that. Just looking at that, I'd forgotten about all of this until we started talking over the last couple of days. And it just brought it all flooding back. I'm sorry to blab on about it, but it was.
Oh, no, it's great.
It's fantastic.
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
I wonder what song he's playing here.
Pardon me now?
I wonder what song he's playing here. The second, it's the one, you know, it's.
Yeah, that's a good question. It looks like he's tapping, doing some. So, what could it be?
Dance the Night Away, man. The harmonic thing. Because it's like before MTV and stuff, you could only hear. There was no picture to go with it. You had to be standing there to see how he did it. Otherwise, you just had the sound. I couldn't pull up the video. All I had was the the record, you know. So
Mhm.
once you see, it's like, oh, that's how he fucking does it, and it was like
Night away. You're right.
you know what I mean? You know, yeah.
Dave, do you remember? So you said he came out playing "Light Up the Sky." Do you remember? Like, was he playing the like star guitar, dragon guitar on that when he came out?
No, that was the one I remember him playing. Was that one pretty much all night? He might have switched, and it's a little foggy, you know what I mean? But that was the guitar I remember him playing. You know.
Now,
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to show you guys this. I showed this on my show last week because I thought it was really amazing. But because I live out in Pasadena, and about half mile or mile from where I live, it's on Allen. If anybody's in LA and they want to check it out, around the corner from the childhood Van Halen home is this going on right now. So you can't really see from the photo, but all the way up the street, there's chalk drawings because somebody's left chalk there. So there's giant Van Halen logos. And you can see right below the guitar neck is Van Halen written in the concrete. And Eddie did that evidently around 75 or 76 when the concrete was wet, you know, just a kid like, hey, look, the concrete's wet. Let's go scratch our name in the pavement. And it's still there.
That's great.
So that's on North Allen. It's about a block and a half from the childhood Van Halen home where they grew up, you know, where Eddie sat on the bed and learned everything and painted the guitar in the garage and all that. And I was actually talking with Josh Freese yesterday, and he said that his buddy actually lives in that house. He knows it's an engineer guy that bought that house. And so I figured out who, because Dave and I were talking about that the other day, but this guy lives in that house. Anyway, all in front of the house is also people have been leaving flowers out and stuff and just being, I'm sure, respectful of whoever's living there and whatnot. But it's really beautiful that this is going on. I saw some more pictures from out there, and there was a guy sitting there with a little practice amp playing some Van Halen tunes the other day, and people just been showing up out there and paying the respects. But like I said last Sunday on my show, that's the American dream, man. You carve your name in the cement and we're going to be something. And then you work hard and you make it happen. You know, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I love it.
Hey, let's go through some super chats if you don't mind. Just say hi to some folks. Rico USA, thanks for your super chat. We really appreciate it. It's going to go to a good cause. Eddie, an amazing product of nature, nurture, family, and legendary work ethic. In your point of view, which of these had the biggest impact on his guitar greatness, and what made him special, or was it something else? Product of nature, nurture, family, and legendary work ethic. Well, definitely the work ethic. I mean, he put a ton of time in to learn his craft, right?
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, that's all he did. Like, he just sat at home, played guitar. You know, he was kind of shy and didn't go out and didn't do shit. And he just stayed home and played guitar, you know?
It's a combination, right? I mean, it's got to be a combination of the chemistry.
And his parents musicians and
yeah.
I don't know.
I mentioned Josh just a minute ago, Josh Freese. I mean, his brother Jason plays every instrument under the sun. Josh is one of the best rock drummers on the planet. Talk about two brothers that are, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Jason and Josh.
definitely.
And their dad is a genius musician that was the head of all the like music, as I understand it, for Disneyland. So like all the bands at Disney that like he ran that, like he was the head of music for Disneyland. That's what he did. So
I knew Josh when he was like 15 playing at Disneyland.
Yeah, he mentioned you actually. I brought you. We talked about you. He say hi and stuff, and I said that you always speak of him fondly. But yeah, that musical family thing where dad is a, you know, that's the Halen
Picaro family, right?
Who's that? Sorry, the
Picaro family.
The Picaro family. Yeah, for sure. Same thing. Exactly. Just growing up, like, gets in your blood from the time you're like in the womb, I guess. You know?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can. You know, if someone's really good at something. I mean, really good. That's just like in them. You know, I don't believe you can't teach it. Yes, you could teach someone to play guitar. Yes, you could teach them to be a decent player, maybe even a good player.
Yeah.
But the magic, that's just something in them. You know, that's it. You know, I'm sure everyone's had a moment when they met someone. And the minute you meet them, you're just like, this person, whether it's an actor or anything, this person is this person's a star. You just
The
know,
X factor.
you know right away the
Yeah.
X factor.
X
You know
factor.
right away, man.
By the way, speaking of someone who's a star, Sammy Bowler.
Hey.
Sammy,
Like that motherfucker right there.
yeah. Thanks, Sammy. Thanks for the super chat. We really appreciate it. It's going to go to a good cause. Yeah, that's talk about talent. Pentatonic Prancer.
Love that name.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for doing this. I was 13 when VH1 came out. Yeah, about the same age. Oh no, you're a little older than I am. So okay, that album floored all my senses. For me, I'm the one that has it all: tone, aggression, swing, virtuosity, and godlike control. You can't hide behind that song. Yeah, I'm the one, because he was the one, right? I'm the one who
swing, man. That's the key word right there, man. Swing. Absolutely. It doesn't give it the feel. It made it accessible to people. You know, it's like every song people could buy into just because of the way that it felt. You know, that kind of goes back to what Pete was saying about watching one band playing against the other. They had all the talent, so as you're bumping heads like that, you get a vision of what you want it to look like, and that vision comes into focus. You know, then you have David Lee Roth develop as a frontman with the great guitar talent, the brother on drums, the perfect capper as a bass player, and you just keep focusing on your songs and what you want it to look like and what you want it to do. And they achieved it in a way that no one else did up to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even since, you know. I don't think anybody in that style, I don't think they just stood alone. I mean, a lot of bands, you know, after the whole David Crosby thing came out and stuff, I was thinking about all the bands that were influenced. Like, man,
whole generation.
Yeah, like, dude, you missed this whole generation that happened. But I was also thinking that nobody achieved what they achieved. There were some great bands and stuff like that. There was, but everybody with a Floyd Rose and a Strat, you know, crazy guitar with a graphic finish on it, and we've got, you know, Dawkins and Rat and Poison and Warrant and White Lion and Trickster and Striper, and, you know, like, I mean, it was like 4 million bands that came out, and a lot of really fun music stuff. But I mean, Van Halen just, I don't know, man.
Well, you know, there's very few bands that stuck around. You know, they had, so a lot of bands had their time and sort of died off. There's a few exceptions.
Yeah.
To that thing. For some reason, Motley Crue stuck around. You know, and
yeah.
they you know, with tours and huge tours and not, you know, not
accessibility of songs, same formula.
They never really went too down the drain, you know. I mean, there was some times during the, you know, first.
I mean, Bon Jovi too, man.
Bon Jovi also still massive.
Went into the 90s and stayed, even if maybe in the States, maybe the popularity declined. Internationally, they were huge for so long.
Yeah. And you know, so you know, Van Halen could still fill arenas. Bon Jovi obviously fills huge arenas.
Def Leppard.
Def Leppard is still around, yes, and they still fill good arenas. They had a little more downtime there in a little bit, but then it kind of came back up.
Yeah. I saw Def Leppard as like a Van Halen kind of thing. They were more AC/DC-ish to me than.
Well, originally, but later they kind of became something different.
Yeah.
Early on, like On Through the Night and High and Dry. Yeah, totally.
I saw them do On Through the Night. I saw them, the Scorpions, and Priest on the same bill when they were touring that record. Yeah.
Wow, what a wreck!
That was a million years ago, dude. That was like that was way before like 18 Marshall stacks on stage for Priest. They were a cool band back then. Simon Phillips was playing drums. It was great. You know?
Simon Phillips?
Who? For which band?
Simon Phillips from Jeff Beck's band. You know, Simon Phillips, progressive drummer, playing bass or drums, and Judas Priest.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. They had like 3 Marshall stacks aside, couple acoustic 360s. Yeah, it was great.
Simon Phillips.
Now that Pete's gonna look it up.
No, I thought the drummer was Dave.
No, this was it was Les Binks and Simon Phillips. They used to trade off back in the day. That was before Dave Holland. They kind of went commercial when they got Dave Holland. This was before the live record, Unleashed in the East.
Wow.
Teach me things, David Black. Teach me things.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur, man. I'm a dinosaur. Yeah. I don't know. It's great music, you know. Great music.
You know what's a cool game is if you go back through albums from around 1986 to 1991, and you could go through and go, oh, that's a ripoff of a Van Halen song. That's a ripoff of a Van Halen song. That's a ripoff. The riffs, they were all the whole template was defined by like those first 4 or 5 albums.
Yeah.
Everything that happened in that, to your point, Pete, everything that happened afterwards, it's like there'll be some other stuff that maybe a Kiss kind of power ballad or something, but there's like at least 3 or 4 Van Halen songs on every one of those albums.
Yeah, and the thing that was hard to achieve, I think, was that combination. Like Eddie, you know, you listen to like a song like what's the song I'm thinking of? The last song on 1984 is House of Pain. How it goes through all the different feels towards the end of the song. You know, it shifts through like 4 different feels, right? Tempo changes and the whole 9 yards, and the key changes and the solo in the song is gorgeous. Or a song like Hang 'Em High. I mean, what's going on with the bridge in that? It's really sophisticated. You know, think of the bridge in Hang 'Em High. Nobody writes like that in that style. Like it was really sophisticated writing and stuff. And it kind of goes, one of the things I've noticed about sophisticated songs that are really good, like art, like really well crafted, sophisticated music, is that it doesn't sound hard or sophisticated. It just strikes you as great. Oh, I love that song or whatever. And then you go back and you listen to it and you're like, wow, there's a lot of chord changes and movement going on and stuff, but it goes by with the melody and stuff and it just works, you know? So check out, you know, I mean, the B section of Unchained is like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And all the rhythmic stuff.
The timing on that is just so weird. It took me forever to learn that on guitar. I was like, what the fuck is he doing?
But when you sat down and learned it, you realized it. But before that, when you just listen, you're like, this rocks, this rules. And you don't perceive it as like musically super sophisticated or whatever, right? It's an amazing thing. And Van Halen did that. And then nobody captured that. Like nobody that any of the bands afterwards that were influenced were able to, you know, it's, you know.
Yeah, everyone that's after was sort of simplistic.
Yeah, like a bit like lowest common denominator version or something of, you know, not bagging, because there's plenty of bands that did great stuff after too. But it's like, I just think when you go back and you listen to it, like nobody, like I say, like Hang 'Em High, which was probably a throwaway. I mean, when we think about Diver Down, they put out Pretty Woman, and then they basically, the label's like, we need an album because the single came out, it was doing good, and it's like, we need more songs. They're like, we don't have songs. That's why there's so many covers on the record. That's why Dancing in the Streets is on there and stuff. It's because they
Where Have All the Good Times Gone.
Exactly.
Is that a cover?
What's that?
Where Have All the Good Times Gone? That's a cover.
That's a cover, yeah. So there was 3 covers on the album, and the album's only like 34 minutes long or something like that. Like real, like, but yet it has little guitars and secrets, and it has Hang 'Em High, and just that B section in Hang 'Em High, that's so crazy. It's gorgeous, the chord changes and stuff, the way it moves through. Yeah. We just think of it as like party Van Halen. Anyway, I just think nobody achieved that afterwards. They weren't able to get and that's just that's the brilliance of Eddie Van Halen, and then also David Lee Roth being able to distill it down to
sing over it,
this melody, and that's the B section in Unchained, being able to tie it together with a melody. He listened to that somehow and went, okay, what if I sing this on top of that, and it'll tie it into a song. So great.
I mean, there was one song that comes to mind that I remember that I was like, how the hell did he come up with lyrics to this song? Which one was it? It was Sinner's Swing.
Oh yeah.
It's like
the solo on that song is great.
With a melody to sing over that, because it's just such a weird. The whole riff is just, you know.
Yeah.
How do you sing over that?
Yeah.
Like you can mute the vocal, and they're perfectly acceptable instrumentals. Like complete.
Yeah.
The chords move with like a melodicism. And that's why I think everyone plays Eddie songs, because they stand there on their own without a bass player, without a singer. It's a song by just kind of playing through the guitar part. I don't know how they put vocals on this stuff. That's also quite an achievement.
Yeah. It is. It really was.
Yeah.
I mean, special, because to me, I think when Sammy came in, the music became a bit more chord oriented.
little more simple.
Yeah, not as riff
Decibel.
oriented. Yeah, yeah.
That's right. It sure did. It's yeah. Some I also think they were getting further and further and further away from those club days, where they had the they were playing everything from probably like like I say, Kool and the Gang and James Brown or something through to ZZ Top to So you had all the influence of that '70s rock and stuff, and then they were getting into the '80s, getting further and further and further away from those days. Sammy comes in, his influence comes in, and it's like they haven't been a cover band for a long time at that point, playing with all those other influences, getting into the music. And because really, like, take a song like I'm the One, or like it's like hyped up ZZ Top or John Lee Hooker or something, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
sure.
And then getting way, 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 way from that, and then we're in the '80s. It's like pop dominating the airwaves and stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And they sort of wrote songs like that. I think Ed was happy to do stuff like that for a while.
And the solos in the Sammy era got a little bit lazier and a little simpler. Not quite the fire that there once was.
On average.
The danger back
On
in the day.
average, there are a few exceptions in there, maybe, but
If you go and look at any of the influence that Ed says around the Sammy era, it tends to be like prog rock keyboard bands. It's like Genesis and like old Genesis and
Peter
like,
Gabriel. He really liked Peter Gabriel. That's right.
Right. And they even talked about having Phil Collins being the singer after Dave left.
Oh, that would have been weird.
That would have been crazy.
Yeah, that would be really strange. We have another super chat. L. Scott Music. We've missed a lot of super chats. I promise I will mention them as soon as I can. L. Scott Music, thank you. Who here thinks they could have survived the MTV Lost Weekend with VH? Oh man, I remember that.
Oof.
I'm actually friends on Facebook with the guy who won the MTV Lost Weekend, and his name is totally drawing a blank on his name now. God. But anyway, really nice guy. Do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
The MTV. Okay, so this is before your time, Michael. So in '84, MTV had the Lost Weekend contest where you sent in a postcard, and I think they received like 2 million postcards. And this guy won. He was picked out of it, and you got to spend. First of all, they traveled you on a private plane, you and your buddy, out to whatever show, and you spent the weekend with Van Halen. They filmed the whole thing. There's video of this if you look it up.
Maybe not the whole thing.
No, not the whole thing. Yeah. But there's outtakes though. I've got a video of the outtakes from it. I think it might even be on YouTube. But it's very cool. Very, very funny. Let me see what else I'm missing here. Okay, we got Christopher Butler. Been watching reaction videos of Live Without a Net solo. What they always say is, holy shit. But also that smile, it's obvious. He loves what he's doing. 13-year-olds, hip hop critics, guitars, teachers, joy. I'm not sure what that means.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. He's always smiling.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys in the chats also have asked if Dave could recount when he opened up Ed's amp.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Plexico for Pete, Dave et al. Do you think EVH generated his high gain sound by maxing out his EQ in early recordings?
It's really quite simple. He just turned every knob on his amp on 10 with a variac down at 90 volts with the tubes essentially sort of biased for that voltage. Not really, but kind of. And then depending on the era, there might have been an EQ involved. Boosting the front end a little bit, maybe.
Yeah,
That's it. It's pretty damn gainy when his amp was pretty gainy. I mean, when you cranked it, it sounded like
great.
Sounded great. I mean, it's not like you could, maybe touch it slightly with an EQ for like Van Halen 1. And you got to also remember the pickups and guitars varied wildly on album to album and track to track, and different guitars were used for different things, and early records were a stock Fender bridge, later records might have been a Floyd Rose, there was a Les Paul in there, a Flying V in there. That depend on record,
Echoplex will kick the front end a little too.
Yeah, I look at that as more like color, kind of maybe.
Yep. Yeah.
Along with a bunch of non-true bypass pedals too, are changing the loading effect the guitar had into the front of the amp. It's changing the tone a little bit. The EQs for sure. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe. There's
And then
pictures of them, right? So who knows? You know.
And the first record was JBL and Celestion.
Right.
But he didn't like the first record. He didn't like the tone of the first record.
He didn't. Dave and I had a whole conversation. There's one of the EQs, right?
Yeah.
Dave and I had a whole conversation the other day about pickups. We have these friendly debates sometimes because he knows that I'm convinced Van Halen won maybe 85%. I think it was that Mighty Mite or Seymour Duncan rewound pickup that might have been 14K ceramic magnet.
Mighty Mite. I've heard Mighty Mite for a while. That's a great word.
Or maybe he changed
Mighty
the
Mite
magnet into
pickups.
Mighty Mite. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
He did have the pickup rewound. He did say that in an interview.
Yeah, I showed Dave the other day the picture of in the Guitar Player magazine, 79 or something. It's like Seymour Duncan, because Seymour Duncan used to be just a rewinder. He was like not, before he was like producing, he was just like a modern rewinder guy. And there's this ad that came out in like 79. His first ad when he was selling pickups, and he had the JB because he rewound pickups for Jeff, I guess, and stuff. And he had, a few different pickups, and one of them says Duncan Custom, and in parentheses says Van Halen. And everybody, Ed says, "Oh, Seymour rewound my pickup," or stuff like that. And it says Duncan Custom Van Halen. Well, what's the spec of a Duncan Custom? It's a 14 point. It's a super distortion clone.
Right.
That's like
Ceramic.
13K, and it's a ceramic magnet. Yeah.
Yeah, 13K ceramic magnet. So what? And then quickly they had a falling out over that, I guess, Ed and Seymour for a minute because of the ad with his name, with the name in there, And then so my theory, and I can't prove it, but I'm just going by the tone of the album. Van Halen 1, I think, could have very well been a ceramic magnet hotter pickup, and then by Van Halen 2, it was PAF, probably Alnico 2 PAF, different sound completely, right? It's way cleaner and stuff. And so,
Well,
the JBL,
yeah, sort of. It is cleaner, but it's still really distorted.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, we've had this discussion before too. For me, Van Halen 2 is the perfect sounding Van Halen record. I think the bass is great. I think the drums sound great on that record. The guitars are just, unbelievable sounding. Sounds like the amp's going to explode, just like the right amount of reverb, not too much, just really, really, really good. I mean, of course, there's other records that are great too. Fair Warning's great, but it's a smaller tone and it's a little more distorted sounding, and it's kind of smaller, and there's not the same bigness to it, but amazing playing. And then you have Women and Children First. Well, that's really reverbed, but killer stuff on it.
kind of close to the first album tone, but not as good. That album,
not as well. I don't know if it's close. Actually, it might be closer to Van Halen 2, but more reverb.
Yeah,
more reverb.
The sound of that album, when I go back
round
and
out,
it sounds kind of rushed to me. Like it's a great record and everything, but it sounds more like we just got off the road. We're a little tired. Label wants a record. Okay, let's go in and do it.
But everyone wants some when all the little screeches and noises, and then when the first chords come in,
it's great.
Just like unbelievable sounding.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then even down to I think maybe the worst sounding record was maybe Diver Down to me. That seemed rushed.
That was definitely a rushed album. Yeah.
And
no heart in it.
And I love 84 though. 84 was a great record, but his tone was way cleaner, and he was playing a lot more like Alan Holdsworth.
Mm-hmm.
Great record. So good.
But there's some great tone in there. Like it's like just chewy kind of sounding. So
it is great. It sounds great. That right. I don't know. It's timeless sounding with the Simmons.
If I have to pick one of the amp recording, I like Van Halen 2 first.
See, for me, it's 84. I think
that's your favorite.
Yeah.
Guitar tone.
Great. Yeah, I mean, House of Pain.
Really?
Yeah, just I really like the Panama. Like some really great tones on that.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I don't know.
what you mean.
I go that between that and Fair Warning. I mean, I really love Fair Warning too. So
Drop Dead Legs on 1984.
yeah, there you go.
Amazing. All of the amazing tones on 1984, I found out later, it was all the Flying V.
Yeah.
Yeah. None of it was the Frankenstrat.
I don't even know if he was playing the Frankenstrat by then, or if he was doing the Kramer thing and stuff. Because you know, I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's like he definitely on tour was to the Kramers and stuff. So everything could have changed. But I love the sounds and the playing on that record. I mean, it's kind of like, and then you see it in 5150, actually, like in that Live Without a Net. His playing is insane on that. It's like his style had fully, finally, like, you know, because he went through a lot of different phases and stuff. And then that 3 or 4 years in there, his style, it's like he could just, it's like he wasn't even thinking about anything, and he was just playing, and it was just Eddie Van Halen coming out, like fully realized Eddie Van Halen. No, you know, like flawless, like seamless. Just
but for me, you know, like I said, Van Halen 2, Out of Love Again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, come on. It's just like
that's amazing.
That do, you know, just the tone of it is like the speakers are gonna pop out of the cabinet.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like to me. You know, it's just like crazy, and then just the tones of the
it is insane sounding. It sounds so good and so raw and so far away from like perfection and fixed tracks and click tracks and stuff.
Yeah. It's when you listen to that record, it's really raw and just sounds like he's on fire.
Yeah,
I think the aggression of the playing was really there too. You know, like and the groove and the feel and the songs, and I don't know. It reminds me of kind of a pretty happy time. I remember being in Florida once with my best friend Marty, and down at my grandmother's house. And I remember we went into some little food restaurant that had a pool table or something. We were playing pool, and there was a jukebox, and I remember playing Van Halen 2 there, and just like over and over again. So that just has a fond memory for me.
That's awesome. Pentatonic Prancer. My friend Scott always says Ed's rhythm playing was like little like mini little leads.
Kind of like Hendrix.
Yeah.
Like lead guitar, rhythm guitar. It's like all flowing.
The one, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any other super chats. I'm going to mention some of the ones that Peavey has sent me. We've got one from Holly Henderson. Holly.
Hey, Holly.
She didn't give a question, but just sent in a super chat. Thank you. That'll go to a great cause.
What's up, Holly?
Jason Tong. Guys, can you discuss Eddie's wet, dry, wet setup? Eventide's SDE 3000 settings. Did he have dry in the wet cabs?
Yes. So essentially it was, well, it depends on the era, you know, like in the era that rigs that I built, the Eventide went bye-bye. But the Eventide was on a micro pitch shift like everyone used at the time, and it's like something like +9, -9, you know, shifted, and in that kind of rig, it was mixed in with a mixer, so it was blended in. But just 2 discrete delays, left and right, set, you know, at half the delay time. So if you had say 300 and 600 milliseconds, you'd get like a ping pong between the cabs. Generally, the shorter one, you have to set the repeats up a little higher, so it kind of actually ping pongs evenly. Otherwise, it sounds like it's trailing to one side. That's good too, though. It just depends on how you want it to sound.
So would he do that? Like try and balance the delay so they delayed evenly?
It was a ping pong, yeah. It was a ping pong from side to side, yeah.
Okay.
So it did evenly. Generally speaking, when you do that, the shorter delay you have to add more repeats to.
Right.
Because it won't sound even. It'll sound like it trails to the right or left or whichever way that longer delay is on.
Right. So
both are actually cool. Just depends on what you want to hear.
That's really interesting, though.
Yes. So, you know, it was essentially a line out that feed, you know, there's a dry cabinet, and the line out feeds the effects, and the effects, all the effects. Well, again, we're different rigs, different times. But like, for instance, like a PCM 70 fed one input, 2 outputs, feeding 2 delays to an H&H power amp. But all those pieces are analog drive path. So there's no phase, there's no weirdness, there's no nothing in the rigs that I did. And the wet cabinets had dry in it. They weren't all wet at all. So if you turn all the effects off, you have 3 equal volume cabinets. If you stood right in front of the cabinets and walked from left to right, they were equal volume.
Mm.
So hope that answered it.
Yeah. So just a couple suggestions. If you guys want to build your own wet, dry, wet rig, there's a few ways you can do it. I know some people can get, if you want to keep it small, you don't have to have 3 4x12s, right? So you can do 3 1x12s if you wanted to do it that way, right? With a separate power amp.
Or a 4x12 and 2 112s.
Right, or 4x12 with 2 112s. Or I was going to suggest what Pete, you just had on your video, Pete, where that, I forget who makes that extension cab, or you can do wet, dry, wet.
Yeah, the Comet cab. The only thing about it is that the speakers in it are quite different. So it's got, you could do it with it, but it's got small Neo drivers in it for the wet, which are going to sound quite different than, say, a Greenback, you know?
You probably wouldn't want dry in that.
Yeah, they sound kind of odd if you mix dry in them. So they work really well for the wet dry, but having 100% wet in the cabs. So I think if you do the Eddie Van Halen style rig, it's good to have kind of because you got all that dry in those cabinets, and so it's important to have the core.
But depending on what effects you guys are using, you have to know some things. It has to have an analog dry path.
Right.
Otherwise, the rig's going to sound like crap because you're going to have dry that is out of phase with the center dry, or slightly out of phase, or slightly shifted in the wet cabs.
And your big sound.
Either that or you need a mixer in order to pass the dry through unaffected. So it depends. You guys can always email me.
Yeah.
Right. I'd be happy to help you.
Somebody was mentioning that, we were talking about the 84 guitars, and I just remembered Top Jimmy was the Ripley guitar.
Yeah.
With the pan pots.
Yeah,
which is cool. It's so cool, man. Where you listen to it on headphones and everything's jumping around because each string was panned to a different side.
Mm-hmm.
The Ripley, it had a Bartolini pickup in it with pan pots for every single string.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Pretty neat. Yeah, I actually saw that guitar once, and I was like, I was freaking out. It's like, it's the Top Jimmy guitar. It's the natural finish telly, right?
Yeah,
looks like a telly. Right?
I've seen it before. Yeah,
that's so cool. I was like a kid, and on Christmas seeing that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, a few different guitars made appearance on that. It's so funny. He played a bunch of different guitars. I mean, the little guitar, all these great, and it sounded great in its own.
Sure,
we forget sometimes.
Yeah,
Dave, do you know what Ed was using the Palmer speaker simulator for? Was that just
nothing? The line out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it literally was a big line out box. He wasn't using it for a load. He wasn't using it for anything but the line out.
Because there was no line out on the head?
Yeah. It literally was just a big line out box. Unfiltered.
He sold so many of those units.
Yeah, nothing.
Just having it in his rack.
No, those units did sound cool. I mean, they were actually, their load sounded pretty cool. The direct thing on them sounded pretty cool, especially for the time. Especially the old ones, the original ones, they sounded better than the later ones. But yeah, it's just a line out.
Well,
I later eliminated that.
I bought 2. I bought a newer one and I bought an older one. I'm like, this has nothing in common with Van Halen.
No,
really quickly.
Not at all.
Yeah, but now you have to use the line out of it just to be exactly like Ed.
Get it again.
Dave, do you remember any discussions about not using the harmonizer on the rigs you were building?
Yeah.
Like moving away from that again.
He wanted to keep it simple, and he didn't want a mixer, and he didn't want all this stuff. And so there was a discussion about that, and he just lost the harmonizer. He was like, I want to go back simpler. Yeah. Less processed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I personally like it when it wasn't as processed myself.
But you like the 1984 tone, which does have some, right?
Yeah, it has a harmonizer. Harmonizer first appeared on Fair Warning, didn't it?
Maybe, yeah.
It was on Fair Warning. For
That
sure.
early, really?
Yeah.
A little bit. Like crept in.
Crept in. It was a Don Landy thing, and it crept in.
Really? By the way, we had almost 800 people. We got 757 people watching.
Wow.
That's awesome. Guys, please press the subscribe and click the bell. Make sure you guys can get our
And if you want to donate, it's for a good, really good cause. You know?
Yes. And
if you guys want to do that, that'd be great.
Well, all donations, as I mentioned, super chats will go to the two charities, Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation and Children's Hospital. I will tally up all the super chats and then make that donation afterward. One other thing I wanted to mention, if you guys wanted to do a wet, dry, wet rig, something I got from Third Power Amplification. They have a 4x12 that is wired where you can actually do a wet, dry, wet. So the bottom two speakers could be your dry, and the top two speakers could be your wet. And all in one 4x12. It's a very, very cool thing. Email Third Power if you want to check it out. I got one. I thought it was very cool.
But if you want to do it really right, you got to have 3 412s. 3 412s, baby.
3 412s. They're not matching, but
you know
that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't like me, but that's okay. My family, when they're not around, I throw it on. Let me mention a few super chats, and then I'd like to go back to some pictures and dissect a few more things.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You guys all good for time?
Yeah.
Okay. We got a big 100 from Chad. No question, Chad Spittle. Thank you so much, Chad.
I know Chad. Thank you, Chad.
Scott Urbis sent us a super chat. Love the show, guys. Does anyone know when Ed stopped using his original Marshall on recordings? Did he use it on the last VH record? What is that? Different Kind of Truth.
Let's see when he stopped using it. So that would be the fuck record. He didn't use it on the fuck record. He did it on 5150 and OU812. It appeared again partially on balance, but I think it was mixed with the amps at the time. And later it did appear a little bit on the last record. Although how much and what track and how much was mixed in, it was mixed in with the Fender amp. So
we could find out. We'd have to ask Ross.
Yeah, I know some of it was re-recorded by Ross, and maybe none of it was used. But then there were some songs that might have been some of it used. Yeah. So originally it was recorded the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe some of these guys will start talking now, like John Shanks and who are you talking about?
I believe they did a bunch of the record, and then they went up to mix at 50. I mean, short story. They went back up to mix at 5150. Ross Hogarth mixed, and they ended up doing some of the guitars again. And Ross would know as far as.
Yeah, I don't believe the Marshall appeared when Ross recut the guitars.
No,
I don't think so.
Interesting. Okay. We have another super chat from Death by Strangulation. Thank you. He sent $50. Really appreciate that. Love the show. Keep it up, guys. I fired up the 1971 Super Lead and the Variac, the Phase 90 this weekend, and did my best tribute. 0.001% of EVH, but I think he would have liked the effort.
Bravo.
Bravo.
Exactly.
Crank it up.
Lauren said his super chat was missed. It was is the USA Wolfgang, which is $3,600, that much better than the special, which is $1,000. Would you say the Wolfgang is a unique tone for a studio collection?
I don't. Okay, so it depends on which special. So there was a brief time they were made at first in Japan, and those are quite good, and not really any different than the higher priced ones. Now I can't vouch for anything after that. So
Is your guitar special, Dave? The one that
mine's a special because I wanted the flat top.
and is
So
it a
mine's like special because it was a Japan. It started off as the Japan parts, but then it was put together by Chip Ellis and it was signed by Ed and then painted over there at the custom shop. So it's not exactly you know that, but mine's great. It's a great guitar.
Yeah, I had a Japanese special. I thought it was a great guitar. The only difference it was basically it didn't have an arch top. That was basically
yeah. Same pickups, same bridge. I think the same bridge. Pretty sure.
Look, I have a USA.
Yep.
Same USA that Pete has, which is right up there. You know, I can't point to it. But.
I think I wanted. I had my choice actually, and I think I wanted the flat top because I was always thinking I'd like the Ernie Ball guitars, which were the flat tops. You know, I don't know. It was a telly thing, kind of. You know, for me.
That's kind of why I love this finish because it was the first one I ever saw was this finish Ernie Ball. You know, the Ernie Ball.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that guitar is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Guitar.
I love it.
How did the Peaveys hold up compared to the Ernie Balls and the Fender EVH ones?
Wait, can you say that again? Your mic's kind of like all of a sudden low or something.
How did the Peavey Wolfgangs hold up compared to the Ernie Balls and the EVHs?
They were good.
Pretty good. Right?
They were good. I mean, I kind of think the Fender ones and the Ernie Ball ones are slightly better, with maybe the Ernie Ball ones being the best, to be honest, for me. Yeah. I think I like the neck and the Ernie Ball the best.
Something about them. They're really cool. This is a really, really well-made guitar, though. I mean, the finish on this guitar is like flawless.
Yeah.
It's a cool shape, and it's kind of unique. It's hard to get a unique shape that also looks super cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's the funny thing. When he first came out with Ernie Ball, I remember when that first came out, everyone's like, what the hell is that? That's ugly. You know, like awful. And you know, the thing is, it takes years to sell the shape. You know what I mean? Like if it's a new shape, no one wants to see a new shape.
Yep.
And you really just have to own it and go for it and keep pounding at it because, you know, and then eventually people will warm up to it, you know?
Yeah. A couple cool music videos and I was sold.
You know? And, the only thing I preferred on the Peavey versus the Fender one was I preferred the headstock in the Peavey because it didn't have the bottle opener on the top.
Oh,
yeah.
Didn't it have like a thing in there? Like a
there's a piece of wood in there that was kind of carved out and stuff. So it looked a little bit. The bottle opener was a little weird for me, but you know, it's okay.
It's grown on me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
Just at first, I was like,
I think also the wasn't the
it's a weapon. Is what it is.
Then you got to take this out on me.
Stab someone with it.
The Ernie Ball, wasn't it a 4 and 2 instead of 3 and 3?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. It's different. And they have a patent on that.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, no one can make a 4 and 2 headstock.
Really?
really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Some
A
of the
long
patents
time ago.
are
I mean, I
crazy.
don't know if anybody
Maybe
wants.
the patent expired now. I'm not sure, but
It's kind of you got to get used to it. And you're like, oh shit, yeah. Those little things on guitars that like make them like when you got a reverse headstock, you're like, oh yeah, it's down.
Right.
You know, it's a pain in the ass when you're trying to just tune quick at a gig or something. But this guitar's got those little frets on it. That's the only thing. I think maybe someday I get it refretted because they're really small.
Yeah.
yeah, but that was the thing. You know, like I discussed this before. So, he's back.
I can see you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Sorry.
That's the thing. This dawned on me once with those little frets, right? So at E flat,
Oh, mother.
tuned with nines, tuned to E flat. If you have, huge frets, it's going to happen,
Right.
Say again. D2.
Well, I said, so the whole concept. So you have the guitar is at E flat. You have small frets.
You're right.
And it's 9-gauge strings.
Right.
So you put really large frets on it and you press too hard, what's going to happen.
Sure.
It's going to just, it makes sense. It's all scaled, kind of. There's a reason he has the small frets.
Yeah, but Ingve played an 8 on the side.
It's all sort of scaled. It's like, yeah, true. He did.
In E flat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, let's go to some more pictures. If that works for you guys.
I'm going to throw this question out real quick. Do you know what Ed's patents are? I heard he has like 3 patents. Do you know what they are?
The stripes.
Oh, okay.
the flip up table from the 1984.
Table, yeah.
Okay,
and isn't it the Drop to Hell bridge, I think, too?
Yeah, maybe.
That might be it.
What if he has a patent on the
D-tuna pass? That might be that, too.
The D-tuna, I looked up the patent on that. I didn't see Ed on it.
Oh.
But there might be, I don't know. He wasn't on it. So, but, so this is the back of the amps from 79.
Yeah.
The Japan tour.
So that top amp wasn't, that's a 50, the top one.
Oh, yeah.
There's quite a few, there's a few 50s in there.
Kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, those are all. Well, you notice something else that's interesting in this picture too. There's no 6 CA7s in any of the amps.
So I don't know.
It's all Telefunken
Really?
EL34s, which Ed told me was his favorite tube.
Interesting.
So it's all small bottle EL34s on that tour. There's not a 6 CA7 in sight at this point in time. There's no extra tube on any amp in here.
All right. 3 tube amps.
There is no extra knobs on any of these amps. And on the front, on the picture of one of them on the front, there's an EQ tape to the front of one that's just going right into the MXR 6-band EQ that's going right into one amp.
Right. I don't think I have that picture.
Yeah, no.
No.
And seemingly, although we're not really sure, there's an MXR EQ right there. Although I was told that was used for the solo.
That's cool. I mean, even
I
if
was told by Rudy Laren that was used for the solo,
yeah.
and that and the Univox Echo was only patched into the chain for the solo. It was taken out of the chain for the rest of the set.
Anybody ever have one of those things? The little Univox one?
I've never had one.
Remember those things?
Yeah.
Oh man, they were terrible, dude. Yeah, it was a piece of crap, dude.
Which is probably why you don't want it in your chain.
Yeah, he modified
yeah,
it. I mean,
it's terrible. Yeah, terrible.
He modified it so it could go slow enough.
Because what you're seeing in that picture is you're seeing a guitar cable going into the flanger, into the phaser, and out. And then this other switch is doing something. Not sure what.
This thing, right?
Yeah. I think it's switching over to a different set. From what I was told, it was a different set of amps for the eruption solo, for a solo.
Well, this is labeled 1 and this is labeled 2.
Yeah. I'm not sure the other box is even patched in, is it? Maybe. It's hard to see.
If you watch the Fresno show, that's so good. He changes right after the solo from the, he puts on the Destroyer for You Really Got Me. And so he plays a solo through the Univox and then switches rigs basically immediately, as the last note's dying out.
Yeah.
It's funny. He's got the chord right here. out of
Pulled
the
out.
guitar because just so
He only
that-
he liked batteries in his Phase 90s. That's another thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Always. Like in your rigs?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Really?
really wow.
Wow. Oh,
And
wow.
you know what? He proved it to me once. It does sound different.
Really?
Yeah. And better.
With a battery as opposed to the that's
Yeah.
interesting. That is interesting.
That's weird.
So here's the
EQs.
what's that?
EQ. Yeah, Boss G10 EQs. Who knows how this is hooked up exactly? I was under the impression it was to make up for the signal loss that he was getting from his pedal board, which is the opposite of what he probably should have been doing.
It's just like a buffer, right?
Well, yeah, but it's not at the beginning of the chain. Hey, I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay.
I guess an Echoplex has a relatively high output impedance, as I understand it. So, like when I got my clinch pedal that I still love and use, the fellow over there, he described to me that the original clinch, it's EP pre, so it's like an Echoplex. It's like a preamp from an Echoplex.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds amazing, and when you put it in line, it really does go a long way. It's like, whoa, that does sound more like Van Halen if I just use this preamp. It adds it at maximum. It's like 6 dB of gain. In the middle, it's like 3 dB or something. It's just a little bit. It more changes the tone. It does something to the phase or something. But it lends this beautiful fat thing to the tone. That's just like a broad thing. Anyways, the original one that the clinch guy made, he made it exactly like the Echoplex, and the output impedance was kind of high. So he said, if you're going to use this, it's better if you have it close to your amp, like not run a long cable after it, because you can get lost. And I found that really interesting because Ed used to run the Echoplexes and then the GE10, I think, right at the end of the chain. And that could be like maybe he was getting a lot of loss after an Echoplex. The clinch guy then later put out another EP because he was having people sort of complain about it or something, I think, where maybe he just was like, well, this will drive long cable lengths better. And he changed that output impedance to be a lower output impedance. So I'm just talking to Dave about the output impedance of an Echoplex. Like the clinch guy, when he made his preamp, he totally duplicated what an Echoplex does. Yeah. And it's kind of a high output impedance, really.
Yeah.
And so you try to drive a long cable from the front of the stage like he would, and he probably got lost. And maybe that's why the GE10, you know?
Well, yeah, but these Echoplexes were literally right in front of the amps.
Right. So he wasn't running a long cable?
Now, he used to, like a long time ago, he used to set the amps up right to the side of the stage. You know, you see old pictures like that.
Right.
And there was even talk about him doing that later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he remembers that, you know, and he used to set it the side of the stage, and the Echoplexes would be right on top of the amps or right in front of the amps. And this EQ, I'm pretty sure, came from after the pedal board, which maybe the EQ was making up for the losses of the pedal board, because if you really think about it, you had a a flanger and a phase 90 non-true bypass.
Yeah.
With a long cable going in, and not that long a cable going to this because they were side stage. But
still, it's probably like 40 feet. Like
maybe depends on the stage, depends on the time.
Even 30 would be like.
Yeah, I mean you're loading down the guitar massively, so you might need to boost it back up, you know, and EQ it. Really, it would actually make more sense to have the EQ at the pedal board and drive it either into it or after it, but those GA10s sound really good. Really good.
I've heard really good things about that pedal.
Yeah, I mean, the one you showed is mine, isn't it, Pete?
Yeah.
Nice. Now he also has a different curve on these.
Yeah.
Copy the curve right now.
Honestly, I think the curve just has to do with like what he was hearing at the time. I think he changed it.
Probably.
You know?
I gotcha.
Knowing him, he changed everything all the time.
So all right, we went through these, we went through that. Okay. Now what rig is this, Dave?
So this was the later updated rig that I did that was used to the end of his career. So essentially, you have the front box is a loop box. So you had 4 pedal loops and then 2 channel switching loops that would do the PCM 70 on and off and do the SDE 3000s on off. Then you had the EVH foot switch, and the wah was real time. So we had the chorus and the octave, the flange and phaser. They were in loops, true bypass loops. I made this switcher custom for him. He had the metal work done by someone, I don't know who, and I did the switching in it.
Oh, so he had the box actually made from somebody?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe Fender did it.
Fender did it for him, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the big black box on the left here. Well, the far left box is just AC in. Just really converts to AC in. There used to be like another little transformer in there. He used to have a whammy on the board at one point in time, but he took that off. And then in this patch box that I made for him to the right is there is a buffer in that. And it goes to a little black box that's in front of the channel switching box, and there's a balancing transformer. So again, a balanced line back to the rack. So there'd be no noise pickup at all. Guitar would either guitar or wireless would plug into this black box on the far right. Either or, there was an input for a cable, and then also wireless would come down the snake and go into this box.
Are you talking about this box right here?
Yeah. And it's a mute switch, essentially, so he could just mute everything.
And what is this over here? Is this a tuner?
That's a chorus pedal of some sort.
Okay.
He used several different kinds of chorus pedals. There was a Boss one for a while, and then later it was one of the MXR ones, the little analog chorus.
Right.
So he changed that out a little bit. Basically, that was for like Pretty Woman and
Little guitars, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he's got his octave. What did he use the octave for?
Was it one on the solo in Unchained?
There's one on a song on 84. There's an octave, Drop Dead Legs or whatever at the end.
But he's not using that for the
He
detail.
used it a few times. He always had an octave. There's a couple other rigs. There might have been an early pedal board version of what we showed before that had a Peavey octave on it too, like this multi-effects with an octave.
See what other pictures I have. Now this
Didn't you have one of those pink ones, Dave? That Peavey pedal? Or...
No, that was you're thinking of the board that's in the other room.
But didn't he have one of those? Did he ever use one of those pedals?
No. He had there was a Peavey multi-effects pedal for a while, and there was an octave in that he used.
Okay, something.
I have one somewhere. Yeah, so this was the rig that pedal board went with, and that was the rig that continued to be used. Other than maybe amp swapping out, I think he had the EL34 version later, the last tour. Or stealth versions of the amps. And
Dave, did you go to the last nights? Because I realized, like, I guess I was at the last Van Halen show, which is
I didn't go.
Hollywood Bowl.
The funny thing is, to be honest, I didn't want to go at that point.
It was great, man.
Well, Dave wasn't so great.
But it was
Dave wasn't so great on that tour. I mean, I think honestly the best reunion tour was the first one with Dave.
2007.
Towards the end of the tour, when his voice had kind of seasoned, so to speak, got warmed up, so to speak. That was good. I think that was maybe the best he sounded.
Dave was interesting the night that last night I'm talking about, because I saw him 7 and 12, and then the last tour.
Yeah, I saw the 7 and 12. I just didn't see the last tour.
Sometimes he'd be like I don't know, you'd sing a song, go, that was badass. Like every single, it was like, well, there it was. And then I remember particularly, like All Wait, which has a great melody.
Mm-hmm.
And you just didn't sing the melody for some reason.
Yeah.
You sang other stuff.
Yeah.
And I was
You're
like, dude, that's an amazing melody. Like, just want him to sing the song. just please just sing the song. But I mean, whatever, you know, it was still, the other songs were fantastic. And
That's cool.
Yeah, and then in this rack you see PCM 72 SDE 3000s. Then there's a backup PCM 70, and then there's a couple backup at the bottom, a couple backup SD 3000s.
And what's over here?
More H&H power amps. They powered cabs on Wolfgang's side of the stage. And he did have a smart gate, but it wasn't a rack mount one anymore. It was a smart gate little pedal that was in the loop of the amps.
oh, really? You used one of those little gray ones?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. In the other rig, he had a rack mount one, but later it was just a pedal in the back. Worked good.
Now this is
That's a 5150 tour, and that's nothing I did. That's Bob Bradsaw that did that. And essentially, at least what I know of it, and I've seen some of this stuff, essentially 1 amp at a time. These were all backups, so he'd choose which amp he was going to use. And the top, not the very top of this rack, but you see there's, I'm pointing with my mouse like you guys can see that. There's something that has like 3 or 4 knobs on it right there, Mark. Down in the rack.
right here.
Right there, yep. And that was a load box. So that box had 4, there's another knob on there you can't see, but it had 4 loads in it, 4 16 ohm 300 watt load resistors shoved in a box, and there were 4 line out levels, and there was a rotary switch to the right there near the custom audio sticker, and that switched between which amp was on. So and then there were some wireless units that were up here. I'm not sure which ones or what it was. And supposedly in a post I saw recently, there's a compressor here, a Rocktron compressor that wasn't used ever. It was in the rack. Bob Bradshaw said, I'm not sure why I was there. He didn't use it. Although I remember those compressors, I think they had a hush in them. So maybe they were using it as some hushing. And then the rack, again, there's 2 SD 3000s, a PCM 70, and then 2 Eventides, but one Eventide was a backup, supposedly. And you can't really see the rest of it. There's a Bradshaw switcher down there. There's a mixer, rain mixer there. There's some diagrams of this rig somewhere floating around out there. And then right before the H&H power amp, which is in the bottom of this rack, is a one of those Hush exciters that Rocktron that they had, and also supposedly not used, just in the rack.
So this is not one of these cases where he's got like every amp plugged into cabinets and killing everybody.
No, you can technically plug. No, you can. No, 1 amp into 1 amp at a time. In other words, there's 4 possible choices. You can plug 4 of these amps in to this switcher, and he can choose which amp he's going to use.
But it's just one at a time.
But it's 1 at a time. So like if he doesn't like the sound of one day or the other. So the amp is entirely loaded down with the load resistor, goes through the Bradshaw rack, goes to H&H power amp, powers a couple cabs. There's another picture with more H&H power amps and a Variax right there that also went with this rig. Variax obviously for amps, and more H&H power amps powering multiple cabinets all across the stage.
So crazy. So
Yeah.
Dave, tell me this: like, is this rig just stereo and not wet, dry, wet?
No, it's just stereo.
So okay, so he went in, he literally loaded the head down and then went into the effects and came straight out into
Stereo rig, like every rig was at that time. Like loop and everyone else's, you know.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
so it literally is as simple as an amp, a load resistor, a line out, feeding the effects, feeding an H&H. That was the tone. That's what you hear on Live Without a Net.
What is this thing right here?
That's a patch panel.
Oh, I see.
I think that's I'm pretty sure that's just the inputs to the some sort of crude inputs to the H&Hs. That would make sense. 3, and there's 6 XLRs on there, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
Because the inputs on these are XLRs. Well, and a quarter inch, but
And are they around the back? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. I didn't see this picture till recently either.
No, I've never seen that.
I've never seen
Cool.
that.
The first time he started using H&Hs too was on the 1984 tour.
Did that come through Bob Bradshaw, or was that like from Lukather, or did Lukather pull
On
that?
the H&Hs?
Yeah, who started?
Good. I think the 84 thing was pre Bob Bradshaw, I think. And somehow they got on the H&Hs. I'm not sure how.
All right. Let's see what else we got. This is Wolfgang's rig.
Yep. So we basically have wirelesses, a wireless switcher. You have a RJM amp gizmo, which was a channel switching box, essentially on the right there. A drawer full of pedals. RJM switcher down below. And then on the floor, this was interesting because his snake had to be 100 feet. So we had to do all sorts of crap for this. So we had to do like a special MIDI driver thing to make it work. We had to do balanced ins and outs to this pedal board. It was a long ass snake, but it worked.
Yeah, because you can only run MIDI like 25 feet reliably.
Right. You can run MIDI 50 feet before it really shits the bed. But beyond 50, it's a problem.
Why did he need 100 feet cable?
So what we wound up doing is there's underneath this AB box there's a this special box the MIDI goes into, and then I think it was an XLR out or something, and it's designed to drive long runs, and then there's a receiver box on the other end. Just where it was positioned, it needed to go that far.
That's so weird because it almost looks like there's nothing on the pedal board but a wah. And so like you could almost just have a MIDI foot switch.
I understand.
You know,
But we had to run audio out and back for the wall.
you had to have audio out and back for the wall, but couldn't you use one of those crybaby rack like Slash, you know?
We had to run audio out and back for this wall. It's not like a wah.
You're right.
It's one of the
You're not
white-
here right now.
It's one of the bass wahs. It's one of the white kind of synthesized wahs.
Yeah.
So, the answer is yes. And that would have been easier, but
This is Dave in action with the I just do what I'm told.
Right.
yeah, this is what you want to use. Okay, this is what we're gonna do.
I'm playing devil's advocate. Why didn't you say?
Yeah.
Now, what is this? Wolf 1, Wolf 2, Franken, Booberry?
That's just that's just switching the different wireless receivers so they was different bases.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious what Booberry is.
And then the rig went to a Fender Super Bassman amp, which is like Fender's version of an SVT, has 2 channels on it. One's gritty and one's cleaner, and then also a 5153 amp and 4x12 for really gritty. And the fun part was we had to make sure that all the channels on all the amps were, phase aligned. So meaning one channel, he wasn't going to use a combination where one channel was out of phase with the other. Luckily, it actually was all in phase with each other. I don't think I put a phase reverse loop. Maybe
That.
it's been a while.
Yeah, this was a minute ago, right?
I mean, I forget after a while, It's like, yeah, maybe I did that. I'm not sure.
I think we've gone through all the pictures. I just wanted to show this. This is around the same time, Dave Black.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
No,
there's
pick
your
guard.
melted PAF.
Yep. And no pick guard, just a weird like
Tape.
Yeah.
Telly pickup
All
in the
the
middle.
wires together. That's crazy.
And like this thing right here is like the volume knob is attached to like a square thing that's like
Oh yeah, that's a Les Paul jack
That's
plate.
Paul Jack plate. Yeah. That's great, man. That's great.
that's holy shit. I never even thought about it. So that's a Les Paul jack plate that he put a volume knob in.
Pretty sure. Yep.
I mean,
I
who
can use this and screw it to the guitar.
And a
put
telly,
that and go out and be like, I'm ready for my show.
right, Michael? And a telly pickup, it's a totally a telly bridge pickup in the middle, and then that's a telly neck pickup in the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is before
Doesn't really
he put-
matter what you put in there though, because they weren't on.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
really weird too because he's got an extra screw here,
Where?
right here where my cursor is. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
That's
the
the
bridge?
pick guard screw, right?
Yeah, that's possibly it. It could be.
I think that's a pick guard screw.
He's
Yeah.
probably just like, I'm probably going to need this later. I'm going to lose it. I better just screw it.
Yeah, or he yanked the pick guard off. I think there's another one further up by the middle pickup too.
Right.
Oh yeah, there is. There's
Yeah.
one up there. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
No, actually, they're here. There's
Well,
a-
this one's the black and white guitar. Remember?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you
Originally.
just screwed him in again. That's so funny.
still-
Yeah.
Isn't he? Look at the bridge. Isn't the bridge missing the screw under the A string?
yeah, it
I
looks
think
like it.
so. It's hard to see for sure.
Wow, crazy. I think we've gone through all the pictures. This is a great picture, David Black. I mean, you should be proud of this picture.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, I love it. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. Let's get to some super chats because I know.
I'm sure there's some questions in here that I haven't looked at all.
I'm sure there are. Let's see. Leonard Rodriguez gave us a super chat. Thank you. He says, my first Van Halen experience was attending both Fresno shows for the Right Here, Right Carnal Knowledge Tour. 15 years old. Incredible fan since 81. Awesome. Joe Alba. Thank you. Some later tracks have this clipping to it, especially Fire in the Hole. Do you think the mics are clipping or what else causes that? I don't know.
Wait, what?
Some
Sorry.
later tracks have this clipping to it, he says, especially Fire in the Hall.
What album was that on? Is that on 3?
Fire in the Hole. I'm not sure. I'm not that.
There was a clipping on 3 that I heard when I listened to it. It's like, whoa, there's actually like audible clipping. Like,
Yeah, that probably Ed left to his own devices in his studio without any supervision.
got
Yeah.
a take he liked and went, good.
Yeah, this is fine.
It is on 3. It is on 3.
Yeah, on 3, there's quite a bit of clipping going on that I know. When I listen to it, you guys will hear it if you listen to some intros and you listen to it kind of quiet and you're like, whoa, there's like digital clipping going on.
They never listen to anything quiet.
Interesting. Yeah, true. And if you
That's
turn
probably
it
why they don't hear it.
We missed Chad's super chat. Thank you, Chad, for your super chat. We appreciate it. There was no question. Unfucking Believable had a super chat. The gist was that the Beatles on Ed Sullivan influenced a generation. The first time hearing VH1 influenced generations.
Mhm.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
Gavin T gave us $100. Thank you very much. No question for that. Cheddar Kung Pao, $100. Thank you.
Thank
One
you,
and
Jack.
only EVH, amazing guitar player, but also amazing songwriter. I agree with you. Matt Lipschutz, super chat. Does Mr. Holland's Opus accept instrument donations from individuals? I have a guitar or I was going to get rid of, and it might as well go to a good home.
I believe they probably do. That's what Ed did. He gave him like 80 guitars, I think.
Yeah, reach out to him. I don't see if it's a workable instrument. I don't see why they wouldn't take it. Haim Batman, I think that's what their name is. They gave us a $25 super chat. Thank you. Chris Parker gave us $100, $99 super chat. Thank you. Stefan Herbule gave us a super chat. My question, does anyone know why Ed didn't use a fuzz or other pedal?
He didn't like distortion pedals. At least that's what he told me.
Yeah, I don't know why he would.
There you go.
Yeah, like
You just like the tone of when you're cranking up a Marshall, it's hard to get away from. I know Dave Black, and all you guys. I mean, it's like you can use the overdrives and distortions and fuzzes. Like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. Oh, this makes cool sounds. And then you just get back to cranking the amp and try that and go, fuck, like it's so great. Like, so if you could just do that all the time, why wouldn't you? You know, I don't know. It's just a more dynamic. Like it's something about like a high voltage tube amp working in harmony.
That's awesome.
Fuck, dude. Holy fuck. Dude.
Oh man, that would be killer if you would have thought about that and had some girl come by.
Just in the background.
No. Oh fuck, I'm so serious. God.
That would have been great.
Just cruising around.
Oh, that's awesome.
God, my cheeks are so fucking red, dude.
Eric Johnson, thank you. I love Cliffs of Dover, by the way. Thank you, man.
But Dave Black, what do you think about that? Because I've seen you play good and loud, and you play raw, and when you do that, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I never had any luck using like fuzz boxes loud because I don't know. Loud is its own thing. It's its own environment. You know what I mean? It kind of changes. Something that might sound good with fuzz at lower volume doesn't sound good when you turn it up loud like that. I don't know why. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I used to tell Galileo pedal, the Brian May pedal. You know which one? And it's like, wow, I really like that. It's kind of Mick Ronson-y sound, and a lot of color to it and stuff. But if I try and do it with my stuff set up the way I usually do it, it doesn't sound the same, and it's not pleasant sounding. It's unpleasant sounding. You know, it's fake. It sounds fake. It doesn't sound real.
Fake is okay. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
because that's the thing with Eddie Van Halen, where I think getting the distortion from a volume and the amp all high voltage and being so dynamic and everything, where you roll the volume down on the guitar and everything changes a lot. Like it's just this.
Well, the funny thing is, I just we all know. I mean, personally, I don't even know if he's here tonight. Reza, right? We know who Reza is, and I worked. He bought a power station for using it with something else, but then he decided to buy an old Marshall. So he bought a 1972 or 70 or something. I don't remember what it was, and which I refurbished a little bit for him, and put new tubes and just dialed it in, dialed the plexi in, so to speak, because he has a PS100 Fryette power station.
Yeah,
and I got it sounding good. He took it. And he did some clips with it that he posted recently. And I'm listening to those clips going, that's the best sound you ever got. I mean, hands down. I mean, that was just money. It sounded so good, It just sounded like a great Marshall, Yeah, he wasn't doing the Variac trip or anything like that. It was just, but a crank Marshall. He was using a Les Paul, and it sounded amazing.
It's just the best.
Yeah,
it's the best. It's like what
I mean, and you hear his clip, and you're just like, man, that sounds good. Shit.
Yeah. Look at that rig behind you.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's just.
I know. Everyone always says, why don't you have the Friedman amps behind you? Well, because this is my collection, man. So it's my vintage collection. So it's just, I have it here at home, and my other amps are at the shop. So, that's a José 100 watt Marshall on top of that with two vintage basket weave cabinets. Pete got his basket weave cabinet at the same time. We got incredible deals on them.
Sure did.
Yeah.
George Lynch showed up 10 minutes later and bought the rest of them.
Yeah. and you know, and they sound wicked. So
They sound so wicked, and it's like, okay, well, nothing here is like post 1972 almost or something, and it just sounds like it's hard to get away from how good it sounds.
That's awesome.
Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Just turn the amp on 10. Plug it.
Rest in peace.
You know the funny thing is when you have a non-master volume amp and you're cranking it into like a load, or maybe you're using a variac with it and this and that, man, it's just got so much dimension to it and so much feel to it. It almost doesn't need anything. You know, it's just like so right to begin with.
That's right.
If the amp is dialed in properly.
It's like an old pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Just there it is. That's I'm home.
Boom, done.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So just want to mention Deja Blue. Thanks. I agree with you. F Cancer for sure. Steve Rayburn. Opinions on the EVH Greenbacks.
They're great. They're fine. They're essentially a they started life as a heritage greenback. I don't know if they're exactly like it, but they started life as that.
Okay.
Good speaker. Sounds good.
Yeah.
The one thing they're great for is the low efficiency. So with a 100-watt amp, 4 of them in a 412 will drop your volume like noticeably, which is nice when you're cranking a 100-watt Marshall. Or 50-watt. But they definitely sound a little quieter. It's certainly like a couple 3 dB quieter than a V30. I think a V30 is 97 dB efficiency. They're 95 or 96 or something. Yeah. Or maybe a V30 is 98 or 99. And a regular greenback's like 96 or 97. And then these are like 96. And it makes a difference.
Yeah, you know? A little quieter, a little softer.
Yeah, and they're a little softer sounding. But overall, I prefer the regular greenback. And they're a little less expensive and stuff. But the heritage ones are cool. Especially for a high distortion. Eddie Van Halen, like, they're actually really quite cool. There's little they're not the most like punchy aggressive speaker, or like if you're looking for, you know, they're interesting. They're kind of like squishy or something, or maybe it's just the reduced volume. There's something about them that sounds like I don't love them for a lot of other things other than that, you know, cranking 100-watt plexi into, like I wouldn't use them with a Soldano or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. We've got a super chat, top chat from Leroy Bullock. Thank you. He says, when I was a kid, I used to try and play Eddie's solos with an upside down guitar played left-handed. Now I play normal left-handed and still can't play them. Rest in peace, Eddie the King. That's funny.
Isn't that a trip when you see a lefty play a right-handed guitar left-handed?
Yeah.
So like Eric Gales.
Yeah.
Right.
If you watch him, you're just like, oh my God, it's not
Doyle Bramall.
You're like looking at his fingers and the strings, and you're just like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, playing rhythm.
I can't wrap my head around it, you know?
Yeah, playing rhythm, or even when he's bending notes and he's bending down like that.
Yeah, like crazy.
Yeah. Very
That's
strange.
how Doyle plays. It's cool. It's like, wow. I kind of love that shit because it reminds me of like when I was a kid and I didn't understand what was going on.
Right. Yeah, but you see like the licks in reverse. It's so bizarre to watch Eric Gales.
I hope he's okay, by the way.
Yeah,
well, he's home. He's home. I heard.
Oh yeah,
he's home. Yeah, so
that's good.
They released him from the hospital, so that's good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very good.
Your Gales?
Yeah, he had COVID.
COVID.
He and his wife. Wow. They did a GoFundMe too. If anyone wants to contribute to that, Eric Gales, there's a GoFundMe out there for medical expenses and stuff, because I don't think he's been gigging and no money coming in, and I don't think he was the wealthiest individual to begin with. And they've raised, I think last I looked, they raised like $27,000 so far.
Oh, good.
So, just to help with some expenses and stuff.
Right.
But I was worried at first when he went to the hospital. I was like, oh no, no.
Yeah, that's all we need.
You know, and like they sent him home, so that's good. So he's recovering at home. So I think he's okay.
Good to hear. We're gonna go like another 10 minutes. We'll get to as many questions as we can. We have another one from IIF Boston. Thank you for the super chat. How to get the Poundcake Micropitch sound on a mono rig? Thanks to Pete and Michael for the inspiration and being great teachers.
You know, for a minute, what worked really well. Huh? Oh, bathroom
No, I
time.
just gotta go get the door, but I was going to say thank you for the because he was saying thank you, so thank you.
For a mono little pitch detune thing, there was a pedal that was made by Digitech for a while called the Lux, and it did a great mono pitch detune.
Reverb really quick because they're all going to sell out if Dave is saying a pedal.
Yeah. So the Lux from Digitech. Okay, now the prices just went through the roof.
I'm writing it down, by the way.
That happened with the Polara.
It's a race.
It did happen with the Polara.
By the way, also the Polara, Digitech Polara on the plate reverb is a great Van Halen plate reverb. If you want to get a hold of that too.
They're all sold out. There's none of them.
There's none of them. That's funny. False 9, thank you for your super chat. Really appreciate it. It's going to a great cause. Vibhas Patil, thank you. Pete, you've talked about that story about the tech Lonnie and EVH. I'm curious about how much of Eddie's sound was actually in the way he physically attacked the strings with his picking hand. EVH's rhythm playing was magic.
Lonnie related that story to me about how Ed came around and put his arms around him one day and then was playing as Lonnie was like tuning a guitar or something.
Yeah. I was there.
Okay, you tell the story because you were there.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, so Lonnie said that, and he Ed goes around and shows him how like something on the guitar, and what Lonnie noticed was like when Ed played, he sort of punched the string. It was like a quick snap and a punch, and that has to that's totally makes sense to me.
That's what I stole from the orchestra pit when I was watching them do Van Halen.
Yeah, right. You do the same thing. You have that quick snap, that punch. Bam.
Tell us about that. What did you see, Dave? And then what did you?
It's the approach. You know what I mean? It's like all the different rigs and heads and all that stuff is great, but you could tell Eddie Van Halen would sound just like Eddie Van Halen through anything. Did anybody ever hear the Steve Rosen interview?
Yeah.
Where he's sitting in his front, and it's like, dude, go! Oh my God, that's stunning because you can hear it's like he just picked up what was there and blows through the highlights of the whole record for the guy.
Have you heard that, Michael?
No.
Oh, you got to listen
Steven
to that.
Rosen
Great interview.
I haven't heard. Is it on YouTube?
Van Halen too,
Yeah.
I think too. I think it was their new
Google
record.
it. Yeah, Steve Rosen Van Halen interview. So he just threw a cassette on, and they're talking in his living room about the new record that's coming out. And Ed's just playing in pieces of it. And it's
Ed's playing all the riffs, either acoustically on an electric or maybe through a clean amp. I can't.
Yeah, just some bullshit.
Gather.
Yeah, that's great.
And every harmonic and every little squeal and everything you hear clear as day on a completely clean deal.
Yeah, he's got the attack.
And the attack and everything.
Tonight.
It's amazing to hear it.
And check that out.
Which means, that he plugs into anything, like Dave said.
Steve Rosen looks like Paul Schaefer.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a really cool interview to hear all those little noodly parts and show. Oh yeah, this new riff, it goes like this, and it's totally 70s style, like
He's all excited, and you could just tell where he was in life. It's like, man, what a great point,
Oh, it'll blow. If you haven't heard it, you got to hear it because it'll blow your mind that he could do all that stuff with no gain.
Yeah.
Which tells me how strong those mitts are. We talked about that earlier, Pete, before you.
His hands are so strong.
I'm sure you shook his hands at one point in time.
It is like a small, powerful thing.
It was like gonna break your hand pretty much. It was like this. It's not small though. He's kind of big hand and just like
I seem to remember like a focused power.
power. Yeah, but like a rock, like a hand that's a rock.
You know where I hear that is in the trills in Eruption in the middle part.
Mm-hmm.
That trill
Right.
in the middle before the tapping part, right? Those trills are so fast, man.
Well, you hear that kind of shit in the Steven Rosen stuff too when he does the trills, but clean.
Yeah.
And you know that he is hammering on that fingerboard, that string, crazy hard.
Yeah.
In order to make it pop out.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of good guitar players. That can be a fascinating moment where you see like Guthrie Govan. I remember seeing him play at the Sur, or like we were just rapping one day and he had a guitar acoustically at the Sur factory. And I was like, his hands on the neck, the sound they were making, like, whoa, like, whoa, he's got a lot of power in his left hand. Like he was screwing around. I could hear his hand hitting the neck. And I remember Bruce Boulez talking about Paul Gilbert when they were at MI, that he was like, yeah, when his finger hits the neck, acoustically, like you could hear his this power. And Paul had huge hands, you know.
And that's what you'll hear on the Steven Rosen tape.
Yeah, you gotta check that out.
Amazing.
I know you knew Ed. How did you hook up with Ed in the first place?
Sorry, is that me or
Yeah. How did you hook up with Ed in the first place?
It's through Dave.
Oh,
So it's without I'll make a separate video about it at some point, I think, but just tell this story. But Dave introduced me to him, and it was because I was playing with Chris Cornell, and Ed and Chris were friends. Going, probably not a lot of people know that, but going like way back in the 90s, they had like some good hangs and stuff like that. And Chris, they had a mutual appreciation.
Wild Nights.
What's that? Yeah, the Wild Night. And Ed always wanted to do something with Chris. You know, even after Chris passed, he actually told me how he was like, oh man, I always wanted to do something with him, you know, and it never quite came to fruition, but it almost came to fruition. So that was the Chris had brought up to me, I was producing a couple songs for him, and he brought up to me, there were like acoustic versions of songs from a Scream album that I was just working up for him to use for things. And I don't know what he wanted to do with them, but we decided to do these like stripped down acoustic versions. And so I got drums, bass, me playing 12-string guitar on one of them. I don't remember on the other one. And it was upright bass and like brushes on drums, really mellow acoustic versions. And Chris said, what did you think if we got Eddie Van Halen to play on this, if we asked him to play on it? And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, dude, like, and I was so excited, you know? And so a few weeks went by, and I guess I maybe brought it up a couple times to Chris and said, did you try and hit up Ed or anything like that? You know? And it was like, no, but I will. One day I was in Dave's shop, and Dave said, I'm going up to work on Ed's, I got to go up to 5150, work on a rig or something, you know? And I was like, the light bulb went off. And I said, can you ask Ed, just let him know, like that Chris Cornell mentioned, I'd love to have him work on this song, you know, maybe 2 songs. And Dave said, sure. And I got a text an hour later, said, Ed wants you to give him a call. And so I did.
How nervous were you in that call?
I was really nervous. Actually, okay, let me tell a little bit more of this. I'll tell you a little bit more of the story that I told last Saturday. So I called him, and I got the answering machine, which I think was where he was aping the South Park voice or something, or the Timmy voice, you know. and I left a message on his machine, and I'm super nervous leaving a message on his machine. But hey, you know, Dave Friedman, got your number for Dave Friedman. I play with Chris Cornell, and he asked me to give you a call. And so the next morning, I think it was, I put his number in my phone, of course, you know. And the next morning, I was actually in the John. I had to go to the John. So I went to the John, and like I could hear my phone vibrating on the kitchen table. And when I got back, it said, missed call, Eddie Van Halen, you know.
You're like, fuck.
What is that feeling of like, really, you know? And so I called him, and we talked, and of course the Chris Cornell thing was a great bridge to me not being quite as nervous, you know, because I had a purpose to, you know, And he said, well, what's this track? You know, and I told him the story. And he said, how soon can you come up and I can check it out? And I was like, I live in Studio City, man. I'm right down the hill, you know? And so he was having problems with his air conditioning, I remember. So we set a time, and then he said my studio, the AC in my studio is not working and stuff. So so it ended up getting put back a few days. And then eventually I ended up going up there. And I'll tell the whole story in another, because it's crazy. There's some crazy stuff that happened, some really endearing stuff and really unbelievable stuff. But I went up there, and you know, main thing is I ended up in 5150 and sitting there. I always thought I would meet him somehow, like in passing, and just say, you mean so much to me, and you know, that, and shake his hand, maybe, hopefully, something like that. I never thought it would be potentially like doing a track of some sort or something. It was like mind-blowing. So I ended up sitting there in 5150 with him beside me, cranking the track through the mains, and him listening to it. And
you know how loud it is.
Yeah, he likes to listen loud, but it's me playing guitar, because it's the 12 string coming out. You know, it's the acoustic and Toss Panos on drums and John Button on bass coming through the mains, and he's sitting beside me going, okay, I'm gonna listen, then you tell me what you want me to do. Right? Like,
I'll tell you, sure.
I was just like, is this I don't know how to describe it. I get all like worked up even just thinking about it now. But
it's big though, man. That's cool.
So and it actually we did work on it. And so for like I said the other day, before Blabbermouth gets a hold of it or something, says there's this unreleased track with Chris Cornell. And long story short, Chris never ended up singing on it, but Ed played on it. And so long, you know, sometimes when you're in this business, like creative people, artists, they get ideas and they want to do things and stuff, and then it just goes like in one end and out the other, and then it never happens. And that's kind of what Chris just disappeared off the map after that for like the next 2 months. I would call him because Ed played on it, and I went up there. He tried some ideas on it, so I went up going up there a couple more times and listening and stuff like that. And there's a track up there on a 24 track reel with, like I say, Toss on drums and John Button on bass, me on acoustic guitar and him on electric guitar. And I heard it once with the ideas coming back through that, and just going, I can't believe this. You know, I was just like,
but you never got a copy of it.
I never got a copy of it. And what I said to him that day was, I think it would be great to get a scratch vocal on this before we proceed any further, like so that you can hear the melody and stuff. So, you know, because I had no scratch vocal on it. And he said, yeah, that'd be awesome. You know, and he agreed with that. And I was like, okay. But he was totally down with it. It was so organic and beautiful, man. And it was really because of Dave. Dave really was the bridge to making that happen. And then we, you know, stayed friends after that and became friends for the next like 10 years and stayed in touch and stuff. But I owe it all to Dave, really, you know, being able to meet my childhood hero and any of that happening. And long story short, so I would try and get in touch with Chris over the next couple of months. No response. I would say I actually got in touch with Ed and I made this happen, and he's playing on the track and it's all happening. Can I get a scratch vocal from you? No response. And that would happen sometimes, you know. He would just sort of disappear off the map a little bit, and I wouldn't hear from him, you know. And I didn't want to push it because I work for him. So it's like, I don't want to pester him either, you know. So I kind of let it go for a bit and just put it on the back burner. And then Ed got busy working on a different kind of truth at that point. And by the time Chris kind of came back around, and it was like, I just sort of let it go, you know. And then a couple of years after that, so if anybody saw Chris Cornell on the Songbook tour, he played on the Songbook tour with a record player on stage, and he would put drop the needle on a record and then jam along, kind of like you're playing in your living room when you're a kid to records. And that track he actually used, but not with Ed on it, because I never got the mix. But he hit me up a couple of years after that and said, hey, remember when you were working on that version of Scream? You know, like, can I get that so I can put it on LP and play to it on tour? So he would drop the needle on the record and then jam along. So if anybody saw him, they saw him playing to that version of the song. And I was just, you know, I was thinking then to myself, like, yeah, man, it would have been great if we could have done this when Ed was actually working on the song and stuff. But it was one of those things that didn't coalesce into actually working out. So, but it was man, I think about the whole thing. I can't even believe it, you know.
That's amazing.
That's that story. But
that's incredible.
I love that guy, man. He was super fun and super sweet. And Dave introduced me at a time right after he'd really gotten sober and everything. And then you know, there's a lot, it hurt my feelings for him a lot over the next 10 years to see a lot of stuff. People would say things on internet forums and in the press or about like, oh, you know, it's the Van Halen brothers are so difficult or whatever. And they can't, you know, why can't they put out any more music? Why can't they do this? And you don't know, what people are going through and stuff. And he was going through for a long time a lot of stuff, like, and we're really hard on his health and trying, like, really fighting hard, like diet, exercise, staying clean, like all that stuff, like, and like really working hard on it. And it's really important to just to
focused on that.
He was really focused on that, on trying to be healthy, and he couldn't. And I think he really wanted to do stuff, but it wasn't always possible because of his, he had to focus on that, and he worked so hard on it. And so to just know that that's what kind of he was going through stuff. There's a lot of stuff that people just don't know, people's personal struggles and things but he was in such a good place, I do believe, right, Dave? I mean, yeah. I think, and really,
he really straightened his stuff out.
Yeah.
Because I started working in the darkest of times with him.
Right.
The rock bottom. So I saw it through till, the end, so to speak. And he was in a great place. He really got his shit together.
Thank God.
So
I mean, like, to the point, folks should know that there was no giving up.
Right.
Like, no giving up. Like, just I can't even believe some of the the amount of work and effort that he put into, staying healthy and trying to get back to that place where he could go out and play music. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, but it's not a secret that, for 20 years, basically on and off, he was fighting this stuff, health, right? Like stuff that my father got cancer around the same time that he did. And my dad passed away within a couple of years, exact same thing in his tongue, I had a lot of resources, obviously financial resources and stuff but he went for it. I mean, as far as like he went for it the same kind of way that he went for music, I think, like the way that he went after his health, like being really creative with trying different things and different approaches. And man, did it ever work for like 20 years,
Yeah, I remember he told me once, it's like the standard cancer approach. He met with, this was a long time ago. He told me this, like when he first had it, and he met with a bunch of doctors and this and that. And he got really educated with what they did. And he goes, yeah, so you do this, then this, and this. And here's the results. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. What you're doing doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And the statistics prove it. And so he sought alternate treatments in Europe and different places that he could go that they would do that,
which sustained him longer than probably
really a long time.
Yeah,
when you really look at
65 is still too short, though. Speaking as an old man, what I mean? That's like, wow, dude, that's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine. That's what makes it so sad.
It is. It's way too young, no doubt.
Yeah.
More super chats. J Custom, thank you. If I swap out one of the G1230s in my EVH 212 with a Creamback 65, what will the cab's new power handling be? Awesome show and rest in peace, EVH.
It won't. Well, it won't be anymore. Actually, it's based on the lower speaker wattage. So in other words, like in our cabs, in our 412s, we have two 25-watt greenbacks and two vintage 30s, but in reality, it's a 100-watt cabinet. Just because the two vintage 30s are higher wattage doesn't mean anything. So it's really not going to get you anything unless you change both speakers.
Okay. Super chat from Eddie DKK. I don't know what that is, but I think that's a currency. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Let me just try to see if there's any more super chats that I've missed here. Nope. I know BV sent me a few. Rob Garland, if you each had to pick 4 less obvious VH songs to listen to tonight, which ones would you pick? I'd go with In a Simple Rhyme, Secrets, Pleasure Dome, and Mine Oh Mine.
It's good picks.
I couldn't come up with off the top of my head. I couldn't come up with those choices.
Well, the one song that I've been working on just for me is "Women in Love."
That's a great one.
Oh, I love that.
So great.
I mean, "Secrets" is a great song. You know, the other one that I really like is from that Dave did was "Me Wise Magic."
Oh, that was cool. Yeah, later. Yeah, that was good.
The other one too from that period. I Can't Get This Stuff No More. I love that.
Yeah,
It's cool.
those two songs were very, very cool. It was almost, you know what it was? It was like a blending. I was talking about this with a friend of mine. It was like a blending of Van Hagar music with Dave on vocals, which was cool, but different. All right, so let's see if we can get to any more questions before we end.
I remember one interesting thing. You know, when you said that Ed came around Lonnie and showed him, something about how he attacked the guitar or whatever. I actually remember him on that tour in rehearsals doing that to Michael Anthony.
Oh yeah.
No, you play it like this, and he reached his arm around Michael Anthony and like he's showing him how to play it.
That's awesome.
Just some stupid little thing I thought of.
You know, that reminds me of because I missed the 2015 tour because I was pissed at Ed, and in retrospect, I'm sad that I missed the 2015 tour because when he did that Vanity Fair article and was kind of bashing Mikey and said, you know, I had to teach Mike all the bass parts and videotape it for him and stuff like that, I was really bummed.
Yeah.
And I missed the 2015 tour because I was like, oh, Ed, why you bad mouthing Mikey? He's such a nice guy, you know. And in retrospect, I wish
I won't even repeat things I've heard like that.
Yeah.
That goes pretty far back. But we'll just leave it at that. Vinny Moretti asked, do all Strymon pedals have analog dry path? I think most do. I know the delays do. So,
okay. Jason McNamara. Eddie was looking amazing when I saw him. Lucky enough to meet him back in 5150 back in 2017. That was a great video that you did, Jason.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that. I'm glad you got a chance to meet him. How cool was that, right? Let's see. Mark, I donated 25. Wanted to ask Dave what musician, past and present, he'd love to see a Friedman and which model. Thanks, Ronnie Walker. Appreciate it.
Oh, wait. So
is that Ronnie in the gym?
What?
Crap.
Huh?
He's shredded.
Yes, he is.
If that's Ronnie, yeah.
That's really his picture.
Jeez.
What artist I'd like to see have a Friedman, essentially? Is that what he was asking, Mark?
Yeah. He said what
Past
musician, past
and
and present,
present.
I'd love to see a Friedman in which model?
Shit. Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page with the Dirty Shirley.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There you
go. Warren DeMartini, just cuz. Because he's an awesome dude, and I think he'd love the amps. We were actually supposed to get together, but then COVID happened, and it was like, well, I should message him now. I still want that to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. We got a nice super chat from Waterford Giant. If I missed that, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I know we've made a lot of money tonight.
If we've missed any super chats, we're sorry, but thank you very much.
Yes, really
Cause, right?
Peavey's been helping me. I think we missed maybe L. Scott Music gave us a $5 super chat. Thank you, L. Scott Music. I think we touched the question about the Wolfgang special in USA, so we got that. So I think we touched on all the questions, super chat questions. The Guitar Guru Network. If you guys want to get good products, go to the Guitar Guru Network.
Yeah, he said there's a new noise gate called the Shut Up Man. It's supposed to be epic. I don't know. I mean, how much more epic can a noise gate get?
65 years of Ed was the gift of a lifetime.
Here's the funny thing about noise gates. They were widely used in the 80s. But most all pro rigs that I do now have none. Zero. So yeah, and then people ask, well, how do they deal with the noise? Well, they just do.
Don't you think like maybe people were like ignorant to things like ground loops and stuff though then, and so they were using gates to patch?
That's true. That's true. And if the rig is done right, it won't have anything but hiss.
Right.
It won't hum. It won't do anything. I know some people use it as a crutch to be able to gate out the sounds. That's a different thing. To be able to make it like a tight gate, But man, still though, I mean, most of the guys that I know that I've done rigs for don't use gates. Just you'd also be surprised how little gain some of them use.
Right.
That's another thing, So, people like, oh, Jerry Cantrell's sound is really gainy in this and that. I go, well, yeah, if you look at his gain controls, they're at like 6. It's not like, and one's on a BE setting and one's on a JB setting. That's not all that gainy,
Mm-hmm. We got another super chat. Leonard Rodriguez. What about Eddie's backstage Fender amps from the old days and the old pictures? Any Variax mods?
I have no idea.
I know Frank Symes told me, well, there's a couple things. One thing that Eddie mentioned in early interviews was playing through one of those old Fenders, whether it was a Bandmaster, and he used to plug into the extension speaker jack. And he said it'd sound great. You could turn it way up, and it was like practice volume. And I tried that on my old Bassman, and it's like you're basically unloading the amp at that point, and it's distorting like crazy. But I've tried it with my.
You're shorting the amp to ground technically. So the use first jack shunts the amp to ground. So the other jack is then just getting like some bleed, so to speak.
Okay.
Probably not really good for the amp.
Yeah, but it sounds great.
It
sounds great. And so I've tried that, and I know he used to do that, and he said that was his favorite sound he ever got was his Bandmaster in his bedroom, like using it. And when you think about it, how much he probably played it like that forever without it blowing up.
True. Fenders are really resilient to that kind of stuff, though.
Yeah, not recommending it by any means, but and then the other thing is, I remember Frank Symes telling me about blowing up his amp, and at a gig, and him mentioning, you see sometimes Ed with like other amps, like in the mid 70s, stacked up on the side of the stage. Fenders and a Vox sometimes you see, and he had these different heads, And I remember Frank telling me he borrowed his Bandmaster one night at a gig. He'd blown up his amp, like it was one of those times when they were playing together at the Gazzarri's or something, or 2 sets at the Whiskey or whatever, both bands. And he lent the amp to Frank, this Bandmaster, and he played through it for his set. And he said it sounded great. It's kind of cool, like borrowed it from Ed. But he also told me stories about them like hanging out in the back alley behind like the whiskey and stuff and drink. He said Ed would
Schlitz,
Adidas bag full of Schlitz. Yeah, instead of buying or whatever, he'd have and it's drink in the back alley and stuff together. It's crazy. Another funny story. Just from that same era, I remember Jimmy Volpe, a drummer that was in a band called Smile that was also around in that era, jamming. A lot of these bands like WizKids, Smile, then Van Halen gets the deal and just blows up. It goes big. But Jimmy was in a band called Smile that used to jam with Van Halen, play with Van Halen, the same bills and stuff. And he told me a story about right after Van Halen got signed, they were playing like the Whiskey. And it was either Ed or Dave had a Volvo station wagon that they used to literally like gear on the roof sort of thing, or all stuffed in the back and show up for the gig in this 4-door crappy Volvo station wagon. And he told me a story about Dave after they'd gotten signed, but still, they were just newly signed, screaming around the corner in the Volvo station wagon from around the corner of the Whiskey. Dave banging on the door and yelling out the window saying, "Wait till all you guys get your big record deal, you get yourself a nice car like this." And it was just like, Start blasting off down Sunset Boulevard, after a gig.
I can picture Dave doing that.
Yeah. Cool, man.
That's funny. We got a few more.
Magic era.
Totally. Disco Scotty. Thank goodness we got a full lifetime of music from EVH. Imagine what Hendrix would have given us over the multiple decades.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. It's crazy. Mark, on Women in Love, didn't Ed use an H910? Thanks for this, guys. I've been trying to figure out what Ed did use on Women in Love, because that tone is very compressed. It's clean, but so the tapping on it is just so crisp.
The intro.
Yeah. It's just, but it's not distorted. Like when I try to play it, it's like I'm using it with distortion and trying to turn the amp down, but it's got to have some heavy compression on it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't really know what that is. I've always wondered, to be honest. Also, the intro of
I know you use that chorus echo thing, that Boss, the Roland chorus echo. I had one in my shop. I know you used that a bunch early on.
Yeah, I wonder if he used that. Also, I was thinking hear about it later too. The intro. It's like I don't think that's the Marshall.
I remember Toshi has one that he got because he's the Van Halen nut, and and I worked on that at the shop recently.
I thought
cool sounding.
I thought the chorus that they came out with sounded great and really similar, to be honest. Yeah. But I mean, that was like I did a video for that pedal, that EVH chorus, and that's what it was supposed to be duping, was the, so I think he would have, had an issue with it had he not. I mean, Dave, you remember, I've heard people say that the flanger doesn't sound the same, like the EVH reissue flanger, but it sounds exactly the same to me as far
the vintage one.
Yeah, when you stick the button in on the new one,
it's close.
Have you compared it,
dude? Do you remember the video that we did together for your amp?
Yeah,
where I panned it left and right, and it
Well,
magically.
you got the amp sound, yeah. But I mean, but I guess so.
Flanger is exactly.
The flanger sounds a little different, like if you compare them. But I mean, in the context of the thing, it doesn't really matter.
I don't know, man. I thought they nailed it. Honestly, I don't necessarily feel the same about the Phase 90, but the flanger.
The Phase 90 is off. You got to get like the reissue script.
Well, to be honest, you really need an old one. I mean, the reissue script logo, hand wired is close, but it's lacking. If you compare it to an old one, it is lacking a little something, man. It's just a little more sterile sounding. The old ones have this kind of juicy sort of feel to them. It's hard to explain. It's just better. The new one's close, but it's better.
Modern vintage. I think this is the last one we've got. Modern vintage. Davis, someone wanted a 5150 EVH sound from your amps. Which would it be? Maybe one of them, but modded in some way, or a 100 Deluxe.
Well, I mean, why? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, my amp is going to do more of the older tone. It's not going to do the newer tone. And
if you put that saturation switch on,
nah, it's still not going to do the newer tone. I mean, I don't, I mean, the new tone is cool, but it's not like the old tone for me. So, I mean, I'm just buy the EVH amp,
right? If
you want the new tone, but why do you want to do that?
Friedman. All right, we've been going almost 3 hours. I have to pee. And
I go too. I do.
This has been an epic show. Epic. If we missed any super chats, I completely apologize. But we will gather all the money up, and I'm going to make the donation. I'll let you guys know what we tallied up and where it's going to. But I really appreciate it. And to my guests, Pete Thorn, Michael Nielsen, David Black, you guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging with us and doing this show.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for letting me come out. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
And if there's questions we missed, feel free to email me at friedmanamps@gmail.com if you want to ask the question. I'll answer it. No problem.
Here's one. Could you ask Dave if that was him lighting Ed's cigarette at the Flower Palace?
Yes, it was.
It was.
That was the most epic party that I've ever been to. So that was a party for he did some music for this porn film. He did that music, the Catherine song and another song.
Mm-hmm.
And he invested in this movie or something. And they threw an opening party at his house. And essentially that is, they were busing people up to the house and going to this party. I mean, there was a few hundred people at this party, and it was all, in the house and in the backyard. And there were Cirque du Soleil style performers on trapezes and stuff. There were topless girls sliding down the pool slide into the pool. There was open bars everywhere, like multiple bars, like a main bar, a mojito bar, a margarita bar, or something else bar. Yeah, that was an ugly night. That was an ugly night of open bars. It's like going to the wedding with the open bar.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea. But it was the coolest party I've ever been to. It was amazing. And on the way out the door, drunk Dave had to stop because in the foyer of his house, there was a piano and he was sitting there playing it. And I had to watch it for a while because I really playing it. And meanwhile, there's a girl on a trapeze above it. So fucking weird. It was amazing. He was an amazing piano player.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Can I tell you a quick EVH story?
Yeah.
In the late 90s, I worked at the Guitar Center Sherman Oaks. And my day off, Eddie Van Halen had come in. Of course, it was my day off. And I've seen the story around, but there was a kid there and was asking him, how do you mic up a guitar cab? And it says, well, I take a 57 and a 58. He goes, well, I could only afford to get one of them. So Ed bought both of them for the kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
That's
the next
cool.
day I worked, that kid came back and returned one of the mics.
Get out.
Nope. He returned one of the mics. He's like, I only need one. Everyone was like,
Oh, Jesus.
you kid, get out of here.
Get out.
You should have hit him with it.
Yeah.
Shove it up his ass. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Stupid kid, get out of my store.
Anyway, last one.
Oh,
you
you
know-
know that guy was though. I just have to say that is how that guy was. I mean, like he would do sweet stuff like that. That was just like, like the drop of a hat.
It's very touching. Yeah, it's super sweet.
That's nice.
I think that's amazing. That's a great story. God.
Ashley Moores. I traveled to New York last year from Australia just to see the Frankie and Ed's rig at the Play It Loud exhibition at the Met. Was the Timber Marshall on display there the same one as back in the day?
I don't know for a fact, but the only stripped one I know of is that one. So maybe.
Maybe. I know the guitar is definitely.
Maybe.
That was
And,
definitely the guitar.
Which I worked on. And, someone mentioned before me working on that amp. What was it like when I first opened that amp for the first time? And, well, that's kind of surreal, getting your hands on it. It's in your shop and you have this amp and you're like, God, I got to lock this in the closet or something. It's like, which I did several times. We locked it away in a room.
Wow.
Far away from everything. And he had me restore that amp. So the idea was hadn't sounded right to him for years. And at some point in time, it had been rewired with Teflon wire in the amp and stuff. So it's far from original at this point. And he wanted to put it back to original. So, the idea was, I want to put the original wire back in. Like, okay. So they gave me another Plexi amp to gut the wire out of. So we literally took all the wire out of that amp and put it in his original amp. And then I had some theories about stuff I had read over the years and some stuff on how this amp was originally and should have been set up. And also how it was biased and different things like that. And I applied it to that amp after we rewired it and we put original parts in it and all this stuff. And, you know, we also pulled some parts out of the old amp too, the other amp too, you know, some mustard caps and different things. And in the end, when I was done, the coolest thing ever was he called and said, "That's the best it sounded in 20 years." So, you know, after that, it's like, well, there's no new goals. There's nothing higher that I could do at that point. You know what I mean? There's like, well, now I can just go die.
Right. And just for everybody's clarification, the amp is stock. It's a stock Marc.
Yeah. Well, a couple minor parts that are different.
But it's not modded for like.
No, it's not modded. No, it's no gain mod. It operates like a stock amp.
Right. All right. Well, I want to say long live Edward Van Halen, the VH till I die. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for all 800 and something people who've been watching all night.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. We're going to be back. The next show, just so you know, is where is it? James Santiago, October 23rd.
From UA,
Universal Audio. So that'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are awesome. Hang on while I say goodbye. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, guys.
We love Andy Van Halen.